In ancient Hebrew texts, Abaddon ruled over a bottomless pit beneath the earth where lost souls gathered. This mighty angel held the title of destroyer, and both humans and other angels feared his power to bring ruin. His very name meant doom in Hebrew, and even speaking it made people nervous. Unlike the white-winged angels many imagine, Abaddon commanded an army of terrifying locusts that looked like horses with human faces. These strange creatures wore golden crowns and had women's flowing hair, lions' sharp teeth, and iron armor on their chests. Their tails, like scorpion stingers, could bring pain that lasted for 5 months. The Book of Revelation tells how Abaddon unleashed his locust army upon the earth. These beings could not harm plants or animals. They only attacked humans who lacked a special mark of protection from God. The victims begged for death to escape the pain, but death would not come. People's fear of Abaddon shaped their view of the afterlife for thousands of years. Some saw him as evil itself, while others believed he worked for God as a divine punisher. His story spread so far that even the famous book Pilgrim's Progress included a battle with him that lasted half a day. Writers gave him many names. The Jews called him Abaddon, the Greeks named him Apollyon, and in Latin he became known as the Exterminator. Greek warriors called Achilles their greatest hero. His superhuman strength and fighting skills made him unbeatable in battle. His mother dipped him in magic water as a baby, which turned his skin harder than iron, except for one tiny spot on his heel where she held him. His looks matched his reputation. Tall and muscular, Achilles moved like a lion hunting its prey. Golden hair and fierce eyes made other fighters step back when they saw him coming. People said his war cry could shake the ground and his spear never missed its mark. The mighty warrior killed Hector, the greatest fighter of Troy, in single combat. Achilles dragged Hector's body behind his chariot for 12 days, filled with rage over the death of his closest friend. Even the gods grew angry at this disrespect for the dead. Zeus himself ordered Achilles to return the body to Hector's father. A simple arrow brought down the seemingly invincible hero. Paris, a Trojan prince, shot Achilles in his one weak spot, that unprotected heel. Greeks still use the phrase Achilles' heel to describe a fatal flaw that ruins someone's strength. Young soldiers learned from his story that even the mightiest warrior could fall from too much pride. Aesir gods lived in Asgard, a golden city high above the world. These powerful beings led armies, controlled weather, and shaped the fate of humans and giants alike. Norse people built temples and held feasts to win their favor, hoping the gods would grant them victory in battle and good harvests. The Aesir looked much like humans but stood twice as tall. Thor carried his mighty hammer, Odin wore a patch over his missing eye, and Tyr had only one hand. Each god's scars and weapons told the story of their battles against the giants. These gods paid a high price for wisdom and power. Odin hung himself from a tree for 9 days to learn magic. He traded his eye for knowledge of the future. Thor wrestled old age itself in giant form. The gods bled and suffered to protect humans from monsters. Humans copied the gods' example of facing hard times with courage. Warriors believed the Aesir watched their battles and would choose the bravest to feast in Valhalla after death. Farmers asked Thor to bring rain, sailors sought safe trips from Njord, and poets begged Odin for skill with words. In ancient Persia, Angra Mainyu stood as the mighty spirit of darkness and destruction, the eternal enemy of all that was good. This powerful being could create plagues, storms, and monsters to hurt the world of light. Every misfortune and evil thing came from his endless hatred of Ahura Mazda, the god of wisdom and light. People imagined Angra Mainyu as a shadowy twin of the creator god, like a dark mirror that turned everything pure into something twisted. Unlike the bright and shining forms of good spirits, he stayed hidden in the shadows of the north, where demons lived. He chose to be evil, which made him even scarier. This was no mindless monster, but a clever being who picked darkness on purpose. The most famous story tells how Angra Mainyu tried to trick Zoroaster, the great holy man. He offered Zoroaster rule over all the world's kingdoms if he would turn away from goodness. When Zoroaster said no, Angra Mainyu sent an army of demons to attack him, but Zoroaster's prayers turned them all away. For thousands of years, people believed Angra Mainyu fought a great war against the forces of light, with humans caught in the middle. Towns built special fire temples to keep his darkness away, and people said special prayers before sunrise to help the light win each day. Some even wrote his name upside down in their holy books to show how much they rejected his evil ways. In the end, the old stories say light will win. Angra Mainyu will fade away like an old shadow when the sun rises. But until then, anytime something bad happened, from a sudden storm to a spoiled crop, people would blame that troublemaking spirit who just couldn't stand to see the world be happy. Amaterasu ruled the heavens as the sun goddess of Japan, bringing warmth and light to the world each day. Her golden rays gave life to crops and guided people through their daily work. Those who lived beneath her glow saw her as both the source of imperial power and the heart of Japanese culture itself. She looked like a woman of pure radiance, dressed in robes woven from sunbeams that sparkled like morning dew. Her mirror, called Yata no Kagami, shone as bright as her face, while her necklace of precious stones glowed with inner fire. When she moved through the sky, strands of light followed her like silk ribbons in the wind. The goddess once hid herself in a cave after her brother caused trouble in the heavens, taking all light with her. The world fell into darkness, crops began to die, and evil spirits crept from their hiding places. The other gods gathered outside her cave, hoping to draw her out before everything died. The gods hung her mirror and necklace on a sacred tree, and a goddess named Uzume began to dance and tell jokes. The other gods laughed so loudly that Amaterasu peeked out to see what made them so happy. When she spotted her reflection in the mirror, its beauty drew her from the cave. Light flooded back into the world, and the gods quickly sealed the cave behind her.
Like this video and subscribe to Maker.
In ancient Egypt's spirit world, Ammit waited in the Hall of Judgment for souls who lived evil lives. This fearsome creature could eat the hearts of the dead, destroying their chance of living forever in paradise. Unlike other Egyptian beings, people did not worship Ammit. They feared her as the final punishment for a life of wrongdoing. The Egyptians created Ammit by combining parts of their three most dangerous animals. She had the head of a crocodile with its crushing jaws, the front body and legs of a lion with its fierce strength, and the back half of a hippo with its massive size. Some paintings show her with a lion's mane, making her look even more royal and scary. In the Great Hall of Judgment, Ammit played a key role in deciding who deserved eternal life. She crouched beside a large golden scale where Anubis, the jackal-headed god, weighed each dead person's heart against a magical feather of truth. If someone's heart was heavy with evil deeds, Ammit would leap forward and swallow it whole, leaving the person's soul trapped forever in darkness. The threat of Ammit shaped how Egyptians lived their daily lives. They worked hard to be good people, knowing their hearts would one day face her judgment. Families buried their loved ones with special scrolls filled with spells and prayers, hoping to keep their hearts safe from Ammit's mighty jaws. In a way, the hungry creature waiting in the afterlife helped create a more honest world of the living. Since ancient times, angels have served as messengers between heaven and earth, carrying words from God to humans. These powerful beings could appear and vanish at will, move between worlds, and perform miracles that changed the course of history. Unlike the gods who demanded worship, angels acted as helpers and guardians, stepping in during moments of great need. Most people picture angels as beautiful human-like beings with large, white-feathered wings stretching from their backs. They often glow with heavenly light and wear flowing robes of pure white or gold. Some special angels looked quite different, though. Some had many faces or eyes, while others appeared as wheels of fire in the sky. One of the most famous angel stories tells how Gabriel visited a young woman named Mary. The angel's sudden appearance filled her with wonder and fear, but Gabriel brought amazing news. She would give birth to Jesus, who would change the world forever. When Mary asked how this could happen, Gabriel explained that God would make it possible, showing how angels helped people understand God's plan. Angels shaped how people viewed the connection between heaven and earth for thousands of years. When someone faced danger, they would pray for their guardian angel to protect them. Artists painted angels on church walls and ceilings, making heaven feel closer to earth. Even today, many people take comfort in the idea that invisible angels watch over them, ready to help in times of trouble. Some angels took on special jobs that earned them famous names. Michael became known as a warrior who fought evil, Raphael helped heal the sick, and Gabriel delivered important messages. It seems even heaven needs a good division of labor to keep things running smoothly. In ancient Egypt, Anubis stood guard over the dead as they made their final journey to the afterlife. This powerful god could guide souls safely through death's dangers and judge whether they deserved eternal life. People respected and feared him because he held the power to protect their bodies after death and decide if their souls were worthy of paradise. The Egyptians pictured Anubis as a man with the head of a black jackal, a wild dog that roamed their cemeteries at night. His shiny black fur matched the color of the fertile Nile soil and the way bodies looked after the special oils used to preserve them. He often carried a golden staff of power and wore the fine clothes of a royal judge. In his most important role, Anubis weighed each dead person's heart on a giant golden scale against a magical feather of truth. If someone lived a good life, their heart would be light as the feather, and Anubis would guide them to paradise. But if they lived an evil life, their heavy heart would be eaten by a monster, and their soul would disappear forever. The Egyptians trusted Anubis so much they put his image everywhere in their tombs and made special prayers to him. His priests wore jackal masks during sacred ceremonies and carefully preserved dead bodies the way Anubis had taught them. Even the Greeks and Romans came to respect this Egyptian god, mixing his wisdom with their own beliefs about death and the afterlife. Like a spiritual security guard with an excellent nose for truth, Anubis made sure no one could cheat their way into paradise or disturb the peace of the dead. You might say he was the original guard dog, though perhaps it's best not to make that joke in front of an ancient Egyptian priest. The mighty Apedemak ruled as the god of war and empire building in ancient Nubia. This powerful deity could grant victory in battle and determine which kings and queens would rule the land. Warriors prayed to him before combat, while rulers sought his blessing to prove their right to wear the crown. Most art shows Apedemak as a striking figure with a lion's head on a strong human body, dressed in leather armor and carrying a bow and arrows. At the great temple of Naka, though, artists painted him in an amazing way, with 3 lion heads and 4 arms, as if he could watch every direction at once. Sometimes he even appeared as a giant snake with a lion's head, coiled and ready to strike. In one of his most important roles, Apedemak helped choose new rulers for the kingdom. During special ceremonies, he would touch the elbow of the person chosen to rule, showing everyone that this leader had divine approval. He also handed out rewards after battles, giving captured enemies and treasures to the warriors who pleased him most. The people of Nubia built beautiful temples to honor Apedemak, filling them with pictures of his great deeds. They carved his image in the southern region called Butana, far from the influence of Egypt's gods. In these sacred places, people not only prayed for victory in war, but also asked him to make their crops grow tall and strong. This fierce lion god had a gentler side too, helping plants grow and keeping his people fed. You might say Apedemak was the original Lion King, though he spent more time handing out crowns than singing about the circle of life. His position was so important that even when Egypt's powerful god Amun became popular in Nubia, Apedemak kept his special place in people's hearts and prayers. Sun rays dance across Mount Olympus as Apollo rides his golden chariot through the sky. This Greek god commands not just the sun's path, but speaks future truths through oracles and creates music that can heal or harm. Kings and farmers alike seek his blessing, for Apollo's favor brings good health and artistic gifts, while his anger leads to deadly plagues. His beauty matches his power. Golden hair shines like sunbeams, and a muscular frame stands tall as a cypress tree. He carries a silver bow that never misses its mark. A crown of laurel leaves circles his head, and his robe flows like liquid light. When he plays his lyre, a 7-stringed instrument, even the birds stop to listen. The tale of Daphne shows both his might and his weakness. Apollo boasted to Cupid about being the better archer, so Cupid shot him with a love arrow while hitting Daphne with one that made her hate love. Apollo chased Daphne through the forest. Just as he nearly caught her, she begged her father, a river god, to save her. He turned her into a laurel tree. After losing Daphne, Apollo made her leaves his sacred plant. Greek poets now seek the laurel crown as their highest prize. Athletes at his games compete for the same honor. In temples across Greece, his priestesses chew laurel leaves and breathe in sacred smoke to see the future, speaking his wisdom in riddles that change lives. Aphrodite rose from sea foam off the coast of Cyprus, bringing love and beauty into the world. The goddess held power over the hearts of both gods and humans, making even the mightiest beings fall helplessly in love. People across ancient Greece built temples to honor her, hoping she would bless their romances and marriages. Her beauty outshone all others, with flowing golden hair and eyes that changed color like the sea. When Aphrodite walked, flowers bloomed under her feet. She wore a magical belt that made anyone who saw her fall instantly in love. Even the great god Zeus found himself powerless against her charms. Paris of Troy gave Aphrodite a golden apple, choosing her as the most beautiful goddess. She kept her promise to help him win the love of Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. This choice started the famous Trojan War, where thousands fought and died over love and beauty. Aphrodite helped young lovers but showed no mercy to those who ignored love. She cursed Narcissus to fall in love with his own reflection after he broke too many hearts. The young man wasted away staring at himself in a pool of water, turning into the flower we now call Narcissus, or daffodil. Beneath the sands of ancient Egypt slithered Apophis, a giant snake who wanted to destroy the world. This mighty serpent lived in the darkness below earth and spent every night trying to eat the sun god Ra. The Egyptian people feared Apophis more than any other creature because they believed if he ever succeeded, eternal darkness would cover their land. Apophis stretched longer than 100 boats placed end to end, with red scales that glowed like hot metal. His eyes burned yellow like desert lightning, and his fangs dripped poison that could melt stone. When he moved through the waters of the underworld, his body made waves big enough to sink fishing boats on the Nile River above. Each night, as Ra sailed his sunboat across the dark waters of the underworld, Apophis attacked. The snake would drink up the river, creating a deadly trap of shallow water to strand Ra's boat. Then Apophis would rise up, mouth open wide, ready to swallow the sun god whole. But Ra's helpers, especially the clever god Set, fought back with spears and magic. The Egyptian people worked hard to help Ra win this nightly battle. They beat drums, sang songs, and created spells to weaken Apophis. In their homes, they kept small statues showing the snake tied in knots, which they believed helped trap the real Apophis in the underworld. When the sun rose each morning, people celebrated because they knew Ra had won another fight against the mighty Chaos Serpent. Ares lived on Mount Olympus but spent most of his time on battlefields across ancient Greece. The god of war could make peaceful people turn violent with just his presence. Soldiers both worshipped and feared him because he brought both victory and cruel death to those who fought. His appearance matched his fierce nature. He stood twice as tall as any man, wearing bronze armor that glowed like fire. 2 huge black horses pulled his war chariot across the sky, spreading fear in the hearts of armies below. His eyes blazed red when battle rage took hold, and his voice boomed like thunder. The other gods often mocked Ares for his rough ways and love of fighting. Once, 2 giant brothers trapped him in a bronze jar for 13 months. He screamed and raged but could not break free until Hermes, the messenger god, sneaked in and rescued him. The story spread among humans who laughed at how the mighty war god got stuck in a jar. People built temples to honor Ares and left him gifts of weapons and armor. They hoped these offerings would keep his anger away from their cities. Farmers prayed to him to protect their lands from enemy armies. Yet few truly loved him. They saw him as a needed but dangerous force, like fire that could both warm a home or burn it down. Artemis roamed the wild forests of ancient Greece, striking both awe and fear into those who crossed her path. A master archer with arrows that never missed their mark, this powerful goddess protected wild creatures while punishing any who dared harm them. Even Zeus, king of the gods, gave his daughter free rein to rule the untamed wilderness. Her beauty matched her deadly skill, with long flowing hair as dark as night and eyes that shone like moonlight on water. She chose to dress simply in a short hunting tunic and leather sandals, carrying her golden bow and a quiver of silver arrows. Unlike other goddesses who lived in palaces, Artemis preferred sleeping under the stars with her pack of hunting dogs and band of nymph companions. Actaeon learned the hard price of crossing this fierce goddess. The young hunter stumbled upon Artemis bathing in a forest pool, a mortal sin that earned swift punishment. She turned him into a stag, and his own hunting dogs, no longer recognizing their master, tore him to pieces. The tale spread quickly among mortals who learned to give the goddess proper respect. The common people built temples to honor Artemis deep in the woods, bringing her offerings of honey and wild fruits. Young girls prayed to her for strength and independence, while hunters begged her blessing before the chase. Her power touched both the wilderness and civilization, protecting the delicate balance between the two worlds with arrow and skill. Athena roamed through ancient Greece as a warrior goddess who carried both spear and scroll. Her greatest gift combined battle skills with deep wisdom, making her different from other gods who chose brute force alone. Greeks sought her help before making big choices, from planning wars to solving tricky problems. Through mist and marble she stood tall, wearing battle armor that shone like morning sun. An owl perched on her shoulder while a snake coiled at her feet, showing her mix of quick thinking and patient wisdom. Her gray eyes blazed with such knowledge that even brave heroes found it hard to meet her gaze. A young weaver named Arachne once bragged she could make better tapestries than Athena. The goddess came to Earth looking like an old woman and warned Arachne to take back her boast. When Arachne refused, Athena showed her true form, and they began a contest that would become famous across the land. Arachne wove beautiful scenes that mocked the gods, while Athena created images of divine power and justice. The goddess turned angry at this insult and changed Arachne into a spider, forced to weave webs forever. From that day, Greeks learned to mix pride in their skills with respect for the gods who gave those gifts. High in the mountains of the Middle East, Azazel dwelled, a powerful angel who became one of history's most famous fallen spirits. Once a heavenly being of great wisdom, he chose to leave heaven to live among humans. His decision reshaped both heaven and earth, securing his place as a pivotal figure in religious lore. Looking like a mix between angel and demon, Azazel could take many shapes, but his most striking form had 7 heads and 14 faces. On his back, he carried 12 mighty wings, split evenly between his left and right sides. When he wanted to appear less frightening, he could take the shape of a dark bird, often landing near people who made offerings to heaven. The most famous story about Azazel tells how he taught humans secrets that heaven had kept hidden. He showed men how to make swords, shields, and armor for war. He taught women about makeup, jewelry, and how to dye their hair. These gifts seemed wonderful at first, but they brought trouble to the world as people used their new knowledge for both good and bad purposes. God punished Azazel for sharing heaven's secrets with humans. The archangel Raphael chained him to sharp, rocky cliffs in a place called Dudael, where he waits in darkness. Some say he will stay there until the end of time, when he must face one final judgment. His story became so important that even today, his name appears in ceremonies where people seek forgiveness for their wrongs. Balayang the bat wielded power over water and earth in the shadowy corners of ancient Australia. With a mere tap of his wing, he could turn water into mud, earning both fear and respect from the aboriginal Chulainn people. Dwelling in the wetlands, he remained far from his brother, Bunjil the eaglehawk, who ruled the dry plains. Balayang looked like other bats, but his jet-black wings stretched wider than any normal bat's. His dark color came from a terrible fire that burned him and his family long ago. Like his small modern cousins, he slept upside down in caves during the day and flew at night when his powers were strongest. The most famous tale of Balayang tells how he created the first crow women. One day, while playing in a lake, he hit the water's surface so hard it turned to mud. As he poked around with a stick, he found 2 women hiding beneath, Cunawara the Black Swan and Cururuk the Brolga. These women became wives for Bunjil's men, bringing balance to the world. The aboriginal people watched for Balayang in the night sky, where he appeared as the bright red star Antares. His story taught them about family bonds, the power of water, and the importance of marriage between different groups. Even today, some elders say that when bats fly over still water, they remember how Balayang shaped their world. Balder radiated warmth and light across the cold Nordic lands. The god of summer sun, joy, and poetry brought hope to people during dark winters. His bright smile and golden hair made him the most beloved of all Norse gods, while his skills with words and weapons earned him respect throughout the realms. His figure stood tall and strong, like a warrior carved from sunlight itself. White robes flowed around him, catching every ray of light until he seemed to glow. A golden ring called Draupnir circled his arm, dropping 8 new rings every 9 days, making him a symbol of endless wealth and giving. One god could not stand Balder's perfection, Loki, the trickster. When Balder's mother had dreams of his death, she made everything in creation swear not to harm him. Only the small mistletoe plant seemed too young to make such a promise. Loki crafted a dart from mistletoe and gave it to Balder's blind brother Hod, telling him to join the games where gods threw weapons at Balder to celebrate how nothing could hurt him. The dart struck true, and Balder fell, taking summer's warmth with him. His death brought the first winter to the world, and his wife Nanna died from grief, joining him in the death realm of Helheim. The god sent a rider to beg Death's goddess to return him, but she agreed only if everything in creation would weep for him. Everything did weep, except for one giantess, Loki in disguise, and so Balder waits in Helheim until the world ends, when he will rise again to rule a new earth. Baphomet first caught people's attention in medieval France during the time of the Knights Templar, a powerful group of warrior monks. This mysterious figure combined human and animal features in one body, showing both male and female traits. The knights faced harsh punishment when their enemies claimed they worshipped Baphomet as a god. This striking being had the head of a goat with large curved horns, but stood upright on 2 legs like a person. A torch burned brightly between its horns, while its body showed both male and female features, a man's bearded face and a woman's full breasts. Great wings spread from its back like a dark angel, and instead of regular feet, it had hooves like a goat. The most famous story of Baphomet comes from the year 1307, when the King of France arrested hundreds of Knights Templar. Under severe torture, many knights spoke of a strange idol they kept. Some said it was a head with 3 faces, others claimed it was a skull, but all called it Baphomet. Though many historians now think the knights made up these tales to stop the torture, the stories spread quickly across Europe. The image of Baphomet we know today comes from a French writer named Eliphas Lévy, who drew the creature in 1856. His drawing showed Baphomet as a symbol of perfect balance, part human and animal, part male and female, mixing light and dark. This version became so popular that modern groups still use it as their symbol, from card readers to religious movements. A powerful goddess named Bastet watched over the Egyptian people from her temple in the city of Bubastis. She began her divine life as a fierce lioness who guarded the pharaoh and fought evil spirits. The Egyptians believed she could stop deadly diseases and keep their homes safe from harm. Her power grew so great that nearly 700,000 people would travel by boat each year to honor her at huge festivals. She changed her form over time, just as a cat changes its mood. While she started as a lioness with sharp teeth and deadly claws, she later became a gentler creature, a woman with the head of a house cat, or sometimes just a cat itself. She often held a rattle called a sistrum in one hand to make music, and wore a special protective necklace that showed her fierce lion past. Artists carved her image in a soft, white stone called alabaster, which may have gotten its name from her. The biggest party in all of Egypt happened at Bastet's temple, which sat on its own island surrounded by water on 3 sides. People came from everywhere to celebrate, filling the air with music and dancing through streets lined with trees that seemed to touch the sky. They brought their best wine and food to share, singing and enjoying themselves more than at any other time of the year. Even the king would come to give her special gifts. The Egyptians loved their cats so much because of Bastet that they treated them like little gods. Cats wore golden jewelry and ate from their owners' plates. These clever animals earned this special treatment by killing snakes and mice that could harm the Egyptians' food supplies. When cats died, their owners would cry as if they had lost a family member. Some cats were even turned into mummies and buried in special cat graves. Over 300,000 of them have been found near Bastet's temple. Beowulf stalked the icy waters and dark forests of ancient Denmark. This mighty warrior possessed the strength of 30 men in one arm alone, making him the strongest hero of his time. Kings and villagers alike sought his help when monsters threatened their lands and loved ones. He looked like other warriors at first glance, but his massive build and piercing gaze set him apart. His hands could crush stone to dust, and his armor gleamed with gold and precious gems given to him by grateful rulers. Most notably, Beowulf fought without weapons when facing the deadliest beasts, trusting in his raw power. The hero made his name fighting Grendel, a monster that killed and ate warriors in their sleep. For 12 years, this beast terrorized the great hall of Heorot until Beowulf arrived. That night, he waited in the darkness and fought the creature bare-handed, ripping off its arm. The mortally wounded Grendel fled to die in its lair. Beowulf ruled as king for 50 winters after his monster-fighting days. He protected his people from raiders and shared his wealth freely with those in need. In his final battle, the old warrior faced a fire-breathing dragon that threatened his kingdom. Though the dragon killed him, Beowulf slew the beast and saved his people one last time, dying as he lived. A true hero. Brahma sits at the heart of Hindu creation stories as a four-headed god who shaped the worlds both seen and unseen. Born from a golden egg that floated in endless darkness, he used his mighty powers to craft the cosmos, filling it with stars, oceans, and every living thing. Each of his 4 faces points to a different direction, letting him watch over all of creation at once. His massive form stretches taller than mountains, wrapped in bright robes that shine like the morning sun. Each of his 4 heads wears a crown made of pure light, and his many arms hold sacred items, holy books, a water pot, prayer beads, and a special spoon used in ceremonies. A great white swan carries him through the skies, soaring between the heavens he created. Brahma once grew so proud of his powers that he forgot about Shiva, the god who destroys and renews all things. When Shiva appeared as a column of fire stretching endlessly up and down, Brahma raced to find its top while his friend Vishnu searched for its bottom. Brahma lied about reaching the top, making Shiva so angry that he cursed him. This explains why Brahma has very few temples today, while other gods have many. People still honor Brahma as the god of knowledge and time, seeking his blessing for new beginnings. Artists and writers pray to him for creative powers, since he first imagined all things into being. Students ask for his help before starting their studies, believing his wisdom can guide them toward understanding the mysteries of life. Among the sacred animals of Islamic tradition, the mighty Buraq stands out as a magical steed faster than lightning itself. This amazing creature lived in the heavens until called down to earth by angels. People honor the Buraq because it carried the Prophet Muhammad on one of the most important journeys in Islamic history. Built like a horse but more beautiful than any earthly animal, the Buraq shone with pure white light from head to tail. It stood taller than a donkey but smaller than a mule, with long graceful ears and 2 powerful wings folded against its sides. Most artists show it with a gentle human face and eyes that sparkled like stars, though early stories don't mention this detail. On a sacred night in the holy city of Mecca, the angel Gabriel brought the Buraq to Muhammad for an amazing journey. At first, the proud Buraq refused to let Muhammad ride, but when Gabriel scolded it, the creature felt so ashamed it began to sweat. Then it carried Muhammad to Jerusalem in a single bound, its hooves reaching as far as its eyes could see with each step. The Buraq didn't just move quickly, it could climb mountains and soar through the heavens themselves. Its back legs would stretch when going uphill, and its front legs would extend going down, keeping its rider level and comfortable. After taking Muhammad to Jerusalem, it flew him up through all 7 levels of heaven, where he met earlier prophets like Abraham and Moses. Today, Muslims remember the Buraq service by naming things that move very fast after this heaven-sent creature. Trains, planes, and even military vehicles carry its name as a sign of speed and pride. In some places, people believe the spot where Muhammad tied the Buraq's reins still holds special power, and they visit it to feel closer to that wonderful night journey. Camazotz ruled the darkest corners of the Maya underworld, wielding the power of death itself through razor-sharp fangs and silent wings. This giant bat creature struck such deep fear into people's hearts that they built special temples just to keep it away. Unlike friendly spirits who helped crops grow or brought rain, Camazotz hunted in perfect darkness and showed no mercy to anyone who crossed its path. Think of a bat as big as 3 tall men standing on each other's shoulders, but with blood-red eyes that glowed like hot coals and claws sharp as obsidian blades. Its wings stretched wider than the longest canoe, and its screech could freeze people in their tracks with terror. When it flew overhead, its shadow seemed to swallow all light beneath it. The hero twins Hunahpu and Xbalanque once faced this deadly creature in its lair, the House of Bats. They tried to hide inside their blowguns while countless bats whirled around them in the pitch-black cave. Poor Hunahpu peeked out to check for sunrise, and in that split second, Camazotz swooped down and ripped off his head. The bat carried its prize to the gods' ball court, where they used it as a ball in their deadly game. Maya priests warned their people never to travel at night without protection from Camazotz. Farmers built special shrines near their fields and left small gifts to keep the death bat away from their homes. Even today, deep in the jungles of Central America, some people still whisper prayers of protection when they hear bats flying overhead in the darkness. Deep beneath the earth in ancient Greek mythology, Cerberus guarded the gates of the underworld. This mighty 3-headed dog kept the dead from escaping back to the world of the living. As the child of 2 monsters, Echidna and Typhon, Cerberus struck fear into both the living and dead with his fierce growls and watchful eyes. Each of Cerberus's 3 heads had razor-sharp teeth, while snakes grew from his body like deadly decorations. His tail was a living serpent that could strike at anyone who came too close. When he walked, his mane of writhing snakes moved like dark waves, and his powerful body matched the size of the largest bulls. The greatest hero of Greece, Heracles, received orders to bring Cerberus up from the underworld without using weapons. Heracles traveled down to the land of the dead, where he found the massive guard dog at his post. Using only his incredible strength, Heracles wrapped his arms around Cerberus and squeezed until the beast gave up the fight. Heracles led the captured Cerberus through the cities of Greece, where people ran in terror at the sight of the 3-headed monster. The giant dog hated the bright sunlight after spending so long in darkness. When they reached the end of their journey, Heracles returned Cerberus to his duty guarding the underworld, where the great beast continues his endless watch over the dead. Chemosh ruled as the mighty god of the Moabites, a people who lived east of the Dead Sea in what we now call Jordan. He held power over war and victory, making him both feared and loved by his followers. The Moabites called themselves people of Chemosh, showing just how deeply they trusted in his strength. Standing tall and proud, Chemosh appeared as a warrior ready for battle. He carried a spear in his hand and wore a simple cloth wrap around his waist, looking much like the kings who worshipped him. 2 burning torches often flanked him, their flames marking him as a god of power. The greatest story of Chemosh comes from a time when his people faced defeat. A Moabite king named Mesha found his city surrounded by enemies, with no hope of escape. To win Chemosh's help, Mesha made the hardest choice a father could make. He offered his own son as a sacrifice. The story tells us that after this terrible act, Chemosh's power grew so strong that the enemy army had to retreat. The Moabites showed their thanks to Chemosh in ways both big and small. They built special temples high on hilltops where they could be closer to him. When they won battles, they would bring him gifts from the conquered cities, everything from sheep to precious treasures. His priests held such power that when they spoke of Chemosh's anger or happiness, even kings listened with fear and hope. Cherubim soared through the sacred spaces of ancient Middle Eastern faiths as powerful winged beings who guarded holy places. These mighty creatures served as both protectors and throne-bearers for their divine master. Most famously, they stood watch at the entrance to the Garden of Eden, wielding flaming swords that flashed and turned in every direction. These celestial guards looked different depending on who described them. Some saw them with 4 faces, a human, lion, ox, and eagle, representing all living creatures on earth. They moved like lightning, their powerful wings spreading out above them while flames danced between their bodies. Their feet shone like polished brass, glowing in the light of their own brightness. Kings and rulers tried to capture the power of cherubim by carving their images into golden thrones and temple walls. In Solomon's great temple, 2 massive cherubim stretched their wings from wall to wall, creating a sacred space beneath them. People believed these carved guardians would keep their holy places safe, just as the real cherubim protected heavenly treasures. Time changed how people pictured these awesome beings. The fierce 4-faced guards slowly transformed in art and stories. By the Middle Ages in Europe, artists began painting cherubim as chubby, smiling babies with tiny wings, quite different from the mighty protectors who once made humans tremble. Yet in the old stories, they remained powerful and strange, racing through the sky carrying divine power on their wings. Among the hills of ancient Rome lived Cupid, a god whose arrows could make anyone fall deeply in love. His golden arrows filled hearts with burning desire, while his lead arrows made people run away from love. People both feared and respected him because no one, not even mighty gods, could resist his power to control their hearts. Cupid looked like a playful young boy with small wings on his back, carrying a bow across his shoulder. He often flew around naked, which showed he had nothing to hide and helped him blend in among the other childlike gods called putti. His eyes sometimes wore a blindfold because love, as many believed, did not judge by sight but by feeling. The young god once shot his arrow at the sun god Apollo, who had made fun of his archery skills. But Cupid got revenge by making Apollo fall madly in love with a beautiful nymph named Daphne. He then shot Daphne with a lead arrow, making her hate Apollo and run away from him. When Apollo chased her, she turned into a laurel tree to escape his love. Flying through gardens and homes, Cupid changed the lives of gods and humans with each arrow he shot. He learned about love's sting himself when he took honey from some bees and got stung. His mother Venus laughed and pointed out that his small arrows hurt others just as much as the bee had hurt him. Though he played tricks on others, Cupid found true love with a human named Psyche, proving that even the god of love could fall under his own spell. Across the misty hills of ancient Ireland lived Chulainn, a warrior with the strength of 20 men. His most remarkable power came from his battle frenzy, which turned him into an unstoppable force. People both feared and honored him because he guarded their lands like a watchful hound, ready to fight any enemy who threatened his people. He looked much like other men until his battle rage took hold. Then his body twisted and changed. One eye sank deep into his head while the other grew huge and fiery. His legs turned backwards at the knee, and every drop of blood in his body bubbled up through his skin. Steam rose from his head like smoke from a fire. Chulainn earned his name as a child when he killed the fierce hound that guarded the Smith Culan's fort. The massive dog attacked him, but young Chulainn caught the beast's ball and drove it back into its throat. To make up for killing the guard dog, he offered to take its place. From that day on, people called him Chulainn, which means Culan's hound. The warrior met his end because he could not break his sacred rules called guise. One rule said he must never eat dog meat, while another said he must accept any food offered by a woman. When 3 witches offered him dog meat, he had to choose which rule to break. He ate the meat, lost his mighty powers, and fell in battle the next day. Ancient Greece gave birth to Eros, a powerful god who could make anyone fall deeply in love with just one shot from his bow. Unlike the playful baby Cupid that came later, Greeks saw Eros as a handsome young man whose arrows no one could resist. Even the mighty gods feared his power to make them fall helplessly in love against their will. This tall and beautiful god walked through the world with large wings spread wide across his back, carrying a bow and 2 kinds of arrows. His golden arrows filled hearts with burning love, while his lead arrows made people run away from romance. Some said he glowed with light so bright it could light up the darkest places. Eros shot one of his arrows at the sun god Apollo, who had made fun of his archery skills. Then he fired a lead arrow at a forest nymph named Daphne, making her hate Apollo with all her heart. When Apollo chased after her, Daphne begged her father to save her, and he turned her into a laurel tree. The mighty love god met his match when he fell for a human princess named Psyche. He visited her only at night and told her never to look at his face. One night, Psyche lit a lamp to see him while he slept, but a drop of hot oil fell on his shoulder. Angry at her lack of trust, Eros flew away, leaving Psyche to wander the earth searching for him until she proved her love through many hard tasks. Soldiers prayed to Eros before going into battle, believing he protected warriors who fought side by side as friends. Young men left honey cakes at his temples, hoping he would help them find love. But Eros also learned about love's pain when he stole honey from some bees and got stung, making his mother laugh at how such a small sting could hurt the mighty god of love. Deep in time's endless flow, Father Time stands as one of the most enduring spirits known to people everywhere. This ancient being holds power over every moment that passes, marking the endless march of days and years with his hourglass and blade. Humans both respect and fear him because he controls the one thing no one can escape, the passing of time itself. Father Time looks exactly as you might picture an ancient keeper of time. His long white beard flows like a waterfall of snow, while his weathered face shows the marks of countless ages. He wears a simple robe that ripples like clouds in the wind, and great wings spread from his shoulders. In one hand he grips a farmer's curved blade called a scythe, while in the other he holds an hourglass that never stops running. The spirit first showed his face in ancient Greece, where people called him Kronos. A king named Cronus already carried a blade for harvest time, so the 2 stories grew together like twisted vines. As years passed, Father Time took his scythe from Cronus and gained his wings during a time called the Renaissance, when artists gave him new life in their work. People see Father Time most often when one year changes to the next. He arrives as an old man carrying the weight of the old year, then hands his duties to a newborn baby who represents the fresh start ahead. His presence reminds everyone that time moves in only one direction, forward, like a river that never stops flowing. When Father Time appears in art, he often pulls back curtains to show truth hiding behind them. This old story tells us that given enough time, truth always comes to light. Some say he fights against lies and tricks, using time itself to wash away false things like waves washing away marks in the sand. Deep beneath the ancient world lived Demogorgon, a powerful being so feared that people dared not speak its name aloud. This ruler of the underworld held power over both gods and demons, making it one of the most mighty forces in all mythology. Even the dark waters of the river Styx, the boundary between life and death, trembled at its presence. The appearance of Demogorgon stayed hidden from mortal eyes, wrapped in shadows and mystery. Some stories painted it as a terrible demon with glowing eyes that could freeze a person's blood. Others whispered that it took the shape of pure darkness itself, like a patch of night that could think and move. Poets and writers often spoke of Demogorgon as the father of all gods, though they did this carefully and with great fear. The famous writer Milton described it alongside Orcus and Hades as one of the 3 most frightening beings in the realm of chaos. When people needed to make a powerful spell or command evil spirits, they would whisper Demogorgon's name 3 times, hoping it would not actually appear. Every 5 years, according to legend, Demogorgon called all the spirits of fate to its grand palace high in the mountains. There, like a stern parent checking on unruly children, it made each spirit explain what they had been doing. The spirits flew through the air on strange vehicles, creating such a sight that anyone who saw it might mistake it for a gathering of witches. Dionysus roamed ancient Greece with his wild band of followers, turning grape juice into wine with a mere touch. This god held power over joy, wild parties, and the mind itself, making people dance until dawn or lose their senses completely. Greeks both welcomed and feared him, never sure if his visits would bring fun or chaos. His looks changed as often as wine swirls in a cup. Sometimes he showed up as a handsome young man crowned with grapevines, other times as a fierce bull ready to charge. He carried a wooden staff wrapped in ivy, topped with a pine cone that dripped sweet wine when he shook it. A farmer once laughed at Dionysus, calling him a fake god who made fake wine. The god smiled and gave him a cup of the richest red wine he'd ever seen. But with each sip, the farmer grew more foolish, dancing and singing until he ran through town without his clothes, believing he was a goat. The Greeks learned to build special theaters to honor Dionysus, hoping he would give them good wine and happy times instead of madness. They put on plays that made people laugh and cry, drank wine and danced together. These shows grew into the first theaters in the world where stories still come alive today. Atop mighty Valhalla stands Eikthrnir, a magical stag whose antlers drip with the waters that feed all rivers in Norse myth. This remarkable deer holds the most important job in the Norse universe, creating the water that flows through every stream, river, and ocean. Warriors feasting in the great hall below can hear his steady footsteps as he walks along the golden roof. His massive antlers stretch toward the sky like the branches of an ancient oak tree, each point crowned with crystal-clear drops of water. The water flows down his horns in steady streams, gathering in pools that become the source of 34 mighty rivers. Some say his coat gleams like starlight, and his hooves ring against Valhalla's roof like distant thunder. While other magical creatures roam freely, Eikthrnir stays faithfully at his post, feeding on the leaves of Lyrad, the great world tree that towers above even Valhalla. The mighty stag never rests from his task, for if he stopped eating the sacred leaves, the waters would cease to flow. The drips from his antlers fall into the deep well called Hvergelmir, from which all the rivers of the world spring forth. The rivers flowing from Eikthrnir's antlers shape the lives of both gods and humans. Some rivers wind their way through the homes of the gods, watering their golden fields and gardens. Others rush down to the world of humans, bringing life-giving water to their crops and livestock. Even the darkest rivers flow from his antlers, carrying water to the very edges of creation. El Tío rules the dark tunnels of Bolivia's Cerro Rico mines, where he stands as both guardian and destroyer of all who venture below ground. This powerful spirit appears as statues throughout the mines, watching miners with glowing eyes and a wicked smile as they dig for silver and tin. Miners know he can give them rich deposits of ore or deadly cave-ins, so they never enter his domain empty-handed. The spirit takes the shape of a man-sized figure with a goat's horns, pointed ears, and a beard made of curling flames. His red skin glows in the darkness, and he sits with legs crossed, always holding lit cigarettes and bottles of strong drinks. Sharp teeth flash when he grins, and his long fingers end in claws that miners say can tear through solid rock. Miners bring El Tío gifts every day: coca leaves to chew, cigarettes to smoke, and strong alcohol to drink. They splash llama blood on mine entrances during special ceremonies, feeding his hunger for sacrifice. Some even say they hear him walking through the tunnels late at night, his cloven hooves clicking on stone as he checks to see who has remembered his tribute. Catholic miners trust both heaven and the underworld to keep them safe, but they follow strict rules about where to pray. They leave their crosses and saints above ground, knowing El Tío guards the world below their feet. Once each year, during the Carnival of Oruro, they carry his image into the sunlight, where dancers act out his battle with the angel Michael, showing how light and darkness must stay in balance. Below the earth in ancient Greece lived the Erinyes, 3 sisters who hunted those who broke sacred oaths or harmed their own family. These fierce goddesses emerged from drops of blood when the sky god Uranus was wounded, making them older than even the mighty Zeus himself. The Greeks feared them so much they avoided saying their real names, calling them the Kind Ones instead, hoping not to catch their attention. These dark sisters looked like women wrapped in black robes, with snakes writhing in their hair instead of strands. Their eyes dripped with hatred, and some stories say they had bat-like wings that let them chase wrongdoers through the night. When they found their target, they would circle like vultures, never tiring, never stopping until their prey broke down from guilt and fear. The most famous hunt of the Erinyes targeted a young man named Orestes, who killed his mother to avenge his father's death. They chased him across Greece, driving him nearly mad with their constant presence. Even though the god Apollo had told Orestes to do this deed, the sisters didn't care. To them, killing family was the worst crime of all. The goddess Athena finally stepped in to help Orestes, setting up the first murder trial in Athens. She convinced the Erinyes to become protectors of justice instead of dealers of vengeance. The sisters agreed, and the people of Athens built them a home under a hill called the Areopagus. There, they watched over the city, punishing the guilty, but also blessing those who lived honest lives. People would leave them honey cakes and sweet wine, not out of fear anymore, but out of respect for these guardians of right and wrong. Among the frozen fjords of Norse mythology prowls Fenrir, a wolf so enormous his jaws could stretch from the ground to the sky. Born to the trickster god Loki and a giantess named Angerboda, this mighty beast grew stronger each day until even the gods themselves began to fear his power. The gods knew from prophecies that Fenrir would one day help destroy their world, so they decided to raise him themselves to keep watch over him. As Fenrir grew, his size matched that of a small mountain, and his black fur bristled with the strength of iron. Only the bravest god, Tyr, dared to feed him, while the others watched in growing alarm as their massive guest devoured more food each day than a village could eat in a month. The gods tried twice to bind him with huge chains, but Fenrir snapped them like twigs, his strength too great for any normal restraint. The gods finally ordered special dwarves to make a ribbon called Gleipnir from impossible things. The sound of a cat's footsteps, a woman's beard, the roots of mountains, and other items that didn't exist. When they brought this silky-looking band to Fenrir, the clever wolf grew suspicious. He agreed to let them bind him only if one of them would place a hand in his mouth as a sign of trust. Brave Tyr stepped forward, knowing he would lose his hand when Fenrir discovered their trick. The magical ribbon held fast, and Fenrir thrashed in rage when he realized he couldn't break free. He bit off Tyr's hand in revenge, but the gods had succeeded in their plan. They tied Fenrir to a massive rock and stuck a sword in his mouth to keep his jaws open, creating a waterfall of drool that became a river. The prophecy says Fenrir will stay bound until Ragnarok, the final battle of the gods, when he will break free and swallow Odin whole before meeting his own end at the hands of Odin's son. Demons of the sea feared Focalor, a mighty spirit who commanded storms and waves with brutal force. Sailors told stories of this powerful duke who led 30 legions of spirits across the oceans. Those who dared to cross him found their ships torn apart by winds or dragged beneath crushing waves. He took the shape of a man with griffin wings, soaring above the waters to spot his prey. When angered, his human features twisted into something fierce and bird-like, while his eyes glowed like burning coals. His voice carried over the howling wind, mixing human speech with the harsh cry of a hunting bird. Every ship that sailed past the Rock of Gibraltar paid tribute to Focalor, leaving offerings of gold and silver in coastal temples. The demon showed no mercy to those who forgot their gifts. He sent massive waves to flood their decks and fierce winds to shred their sails. Some say he took special pleasure in drowning sailors who boasted too much about their skill at sea. The clever ones learned to watch for signs of his approach. A sudden green tint to the waves or the cry of seabirds flying inland meant Focalor hunted nearby. Smart captains turned their ships toward shore when these omens appeared. Others threw their cargo overboard, hoping the offerings would calm his rage. Among the rolling hills of medieval Europe, Forus appeared as a mighty knight who could grant humans the power to understand any language spoken by beasts, birds, or other creatures. This wise spirit commanded 29 demon armies and shared the secrets of herbs and precious stones with those brave enough to seek his counsel. People both feared and respected him because he could strip away memories or restore them with a single touch. His true shape shifted between three striking forms: a strong man with silver hair, a fierce lion ready to pounce, and an eagle with wings that blocked out the sun. When he changed forms, his body shimmered like water in moonlight. His eyes glowed with an inner fire that never went out, marking him as more than human. The most famous knight who sought Phoris's help wanted to speak with his faithful horse before riding into battle. Phoris taught the knight the language of horses, but warned that such knowledge came with a price. After hearing his horse's thoughts and feelings, the knight could never again treat any animal as just a beast of burden. The gift of animal speech changed how many people lived their daily lives. Farmers learned to ask their oxen when they needed rest. Hunters understood the warning cries of birds, and shepherds knew which wolves meant harm and which simply passed through. Some say Phoris still wanders Europe's forests, testing humans to see if they deserve to hear nature's voice. Along the stormy coasts of ancient Europe, Phornius ruled as a mighty sea marquis who taught humans the art of speaking with animals and magical beasts. This towering figure commanded 29 demon armies and could change anyone's enemies into loyal friends through his otherworldly powers. Sailors both feared and sought his guidance, believing he could calm the waters or sink ships with a single command. Standing taller than 3 grown men, Phornius appeared as a massive creature with the head of a sea monster and gleaming scales that shone like polished armor. His eyes glowed with an eerie green light that pierced through the thickest fog, while huge fins stretched out from his shoulders like the wings of a manta ray. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder across the waves. One dark night, a fishing fleet found itself trapped in a deadly storm until their captain called upon Phornius for help. The sea marquis rose from the depths, his scales casting strange reflections in the lightning. He taught the sailors to sing in the language of dolphins, who then guided the ship safely to harbor through the treacherous waters. From that day forward, the fleet never lost another boat to bad weather. Phornius demanded respect, but showed kindness to those who pleased him. He shared his wisdom about ocean life with fishermen, who left him offerings of pearls and silver coins. Unlike other sea demons who only brought destruction, Phornius became known as a teacher who helped humans understand the mysteries of the deep, though he never hesitated to punish those who failed to show him proper respect. Freya rode through Norse lands in a chariot pulled by 2 giant cats, spreading love and beauty wherever she traveled. As the goddess of love, fertility, and war, she claimed half of all fallen warriors for her great hall, while Odin took the other half. People sought her blessing for happy marriages and successful harvests, though they feared her anger could bring storms and heartbreak. Her beauty caught the eye of gods and giants alike. Golden hair flowed past her shoulders like sunlit wheat, and she wore a magical necklace called Brisingamen that glowed like starlight. When she wept, her tears turned to drops of pure gold that fell to earth. 4 dwarves once crafted the perfect necklace, and Freya wanted it more than anything. She agreed to spend 1 night with each dwarf to win the treasure. Other gods judged her choice, but Freya knew her worth and refused to feel shame. The necklace became her most famous possession, its power adding to her own. She taught magic called Cider to the other gods, a power that let them see the future and change their fate. Warriors who died bravely hoped to feast in her hall called Sesrumnir, a great place of honor that stood in her realm of Folkvanger. Even Odin learned magic from her, though some called it women's craft. Frigg ruled as Queen of Asgard, home of the Norse gods, where she held the power to see into every being's future. As wife of Odin and mother to Balder, she earned deep respect from both gods and humans for her wisdom and fierce protection of family. Her spinning wheel in the night sky formed the constellation we know as Orion's Belt. Golden-haired and graceful, Frigg sat on her throne wearing a cloak of falcon feathers that let her fly between worlds. She spun clouds into thread on her spinning wheel, weaving the fates of gods and humans alike. Kings and queens sought her blessing, as her favor meant good fortune for their lands. When her beloved son Balder told her of his bad dreams, Frigg traveled to every corner of the 9 worlds. She made all things, plants, stones, metals, beasts, swear never to harm him. But she missed the small mistletoe plant, thinking it too young to pose any threat. This one small plant led to Baldur's death when the trickster god Loki learned of her mistake. Frigg's loss changed how Norse people viewed fate itself. They learned that even a mother's perfect love could not stop destiny. Yet they still called on Frigg to protect their homes and families, placing her symbols of keys and spinning wheels above their doors. Women in labor prayed to her for safe births, while farmers asked for her help in growing flax for spinning. At the heart of dark forests, Firkus appeared as a wise knight who rode upon a pale horse. This demon held power over secrets, philosophy, and the hidden truths of life and death. Kings and scholars sought his knowledge, yet feared his habit of twisting their wishes into cruel lessons about human pride. His human face bore deep wrinkles like ancient tree bark, while silvery hair flowed down his back like a moonlit stream. Tall and proud in the saddle, he carried a sharp dagger that glowed with strange light. When he spoke, his voice rang clear as chapel bells, though each word seemed to echo with hidden meanings. Firkus once met a young prince who begged to know his future as king. The demon smiled and showed the prince a vision of a golden crown and cheering crowds. Overjoyed, the prince rushed home to claim his throne, not knowing Firkus had shown him his own funeral, where his crown would rest upon his coffin while people celebrated his cruel reign's end. Stories spread of how Firkus taught harsh wisdom to those who came looking for easy answers. Farmers learned to watch for a pale horse near crossroads on moonless nights. Parents warned children that asking too many questions might draw his attention, leading many to say that wisdom gained through pain was a gift from Firkus himself. Howling through storm clouds, Furfur commands both thunder and lies across the realms of hell. This striking demon holds rank as a mighty earl, leading 15 legions of lesser spirits in battle. People feared and respected Furfur for his power to create loving bonds between husbands and wives, even while he reveled in spreading untruths with a thunderous laugh. His form shifts between 3 distinct shapes that strike fear into mortal hearts. As a hart, he bounds through gathering storms with antlers that crackle with lightning. When he appears as a winged angel, his feathers shine with an odd metallic gleam like polished bronze. His third shape, that of a human with a flaming head, lets out booming laughs that sound exactly like thunder. Thunder follows Furfur wherever he travels, marking his path through darkened skies. He takes great joy in teaching humans to love deeply and truly, but his lessons always come with a price. Those who seek his help must first capture him in a magic triangle, a simple shape drawn with 3 straight lines, or he will only speak in lies and riddles. Many people sought Furfur's help to find love, but they had to be clever about it. Smart humans learned to draw their triangles during storms when Furfur's power grew strongest. Those who failed to trap him properly found themselves chasing false loves or believing sweet lies, while those who succeeded gained deep and lasting relationships that weathered any storm. High in the clouds, Gader'el spread his wings as the leader of those who taught humans the arts of war. This mighty angel showed people how to forge weapons from metal and craft armor from leather. His teachings changed the way tribes fought each other forever, turning simple fights into battles with swords and shields. Gader'el stood taller than any human, with wings that glowed like polished bronze in the sunlight. His eyes burned bright as stars, and his voice rolled across the land like thunder. When he walked the earth, the ground shook beneath his feet, and even the bravest warriors fell silent in his presence. The angel chose 500 humans to learn his secrets of metalwork and combat. He taught them to bend iron in great fires, to shape steel into deadly points, and to protect themselves with layers of metal and hide. His students became the first true warriors, and they passed these skills to their children and friends. Soon the whole world learned about making weapons and armor. Tribes grew stronger, but they also grew bolder in their fights with neighbors. The gods saw how Gader'el's gifts led to more bloodshed and decided to act. They stripped away his right to teach humans and banished him from the earth, though many say his influence lives on in every sword and shield made today. Under the ancient hills of Greece, Gaia slept as the very earth itself. This first goddess held power over all growing things and created the mountains, seas, and skies. People respected her as the mother of gods and life itself, since every plant, animal, and even the mighty Titans came from her body. Her form could shift between a young woman made of spring flowers and soil to a wise grandmother whose hair flowed like wheat in the wind. She often wore a green dress of moss and vines. Her eyes shone like pools of water in deep caves. The ground bloomed with flowers wherever she walked. Gaia gave birth to the sky god Uranus and made him her husband. Together they had many children, but Uranus feared their power and locked them away inside the earth. This hurt Gaia deeply, so she crafted a sharp blade from stone and gave it to her son Cronus. He used it to defeat his father and free his brothers and sisters. The people built round temples to honor Gaia, believing she kept the land rich and crops healthy. Farmers would touch the soil and whisper prayers before planting. Greek mothers asked for her blessing during childbirth. Even today, we use her name when we talk about taking care of our planet. People who want to protect nature call themselves Gaia's children. Beneath the frozen ground of ancient Norse lands, Garm stood guard at the gates of Helheim, realm of the dead. This massive hound struck fear into both gods and humans with its blood-curdling howl that could shake the earth itself. People believed that when Garm barked, death walked nearby. A wolf-like beast larger than any living dog, Garm had eyes that glowed like hot coals and teeth sharp as swords. His chest bore the marks of countless battles, and chains of magic steel barely contained his mighty strength. Dark fur bristled along his spine whenever warriors dared approach the gates he guarded. Garm once fought the god Tyr, who lost his hand to the beast's savage bite. The brave god sacrificed his hand to prove he meant no harm, but Garm never trusted another visitor after that day. The hound's fierce loyalty to his duty earned him respect from the gods, who named him the greatest of guardian beasts. The mighty hound played a key role in Norse beliefs about death and the afterlife. Families carved his image on grave markers to watch over their loved ones, while warriors hoped to be strong enough to face him without fear when their time came. Some people left meat offerings near burial grounds to keep Garm happy, though no one dared approach during his nightly patrols. Gilgamesh ruled the city of Uruk as a mighty king with the strength of dozens of men. The gods made him 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, giving him powers far beyond normal people. His subjects both feared and loved him, as he could crush stone walls with his bare hands, but also used his strength to protect his people. When young, Gilgamesh acted like a bully, picking fights and causing trouble in Uruk. The gods heard people's complaints and created Enkidu, a wild man who lived with animals, to challenge him. Enkidu and Gilgamesh fought for days until they tired, then became the closest of friends. Together, Gilgamesh and Enkidu went on great quests across the land. They fought Humbaba, a scary forest monster with the face of a lion and breath that could burn trees. The two friends won the battle, but their actions made the gods angry. The gods struck Enkidu with a deadly illness as punishment. After watching his friend die, Gilgamesh set out to find eternal life, afraid of meeting the same fate. He swam through deep waters, walked through scorching deserts, and crossed the edge of the world, but never found what he sought. In the end, he learned that true immortality comes from the good deeds we leave behind. High in the mountains of ancient Persia, Gushin watched over the secrets of past and future with his many faces. This powerful demon held the rank of duke in Hell's armies, commanding 45 legions of spirits. Most feared among his powers stood his gift to answer any question about the world, making both kings and common folk desire his knowledge. Each of Gushin's faces looked in a different direction, letting him see through time itself. Some stories say he had the strong, muscled body of a man, but bore the head of a baboon, while others claim he showed himself as a bright figure with 3 crowns. When angry, his eyes glowed like burning coals, and his voice could shake the earth. Kings and rulers often tried to trap Gushin, hoping to force him to tell them how long they would live, or when their enemies would attack. The demon enjoyed playing with their fears, sometimes telling the truth, and other times spinning lies so clever that no one could tell the difference. He particularly liked to give answers that seemed simple but held hidden meanings. The people living near his mountain home left offerings of gold and jewels, trying to win his favor. They believed Gushin could make their enemies turn into friends and bring peace to warring tribes. Smart rulers learned to ask him very careful questions, since Gusyon loved turning unclear wishes into unwanted results, rather like a very powerful but mischievous genie with a talent for finding loopholes. Ancient travelers in the Middle East whispered tales of Hagenti, a mighty spirit who changed his shape at will. This powerful being held the secrets of turning simple metals into gold and water into wine. Kings and common folk alike sought his wisdom, though few dared to call upon him directly. The spirit first showed himself as a huge bull with wings like a hawk, sharp horns gleaming in the light. His hooves struck sparks from stone as he walked, and his eyes glowed with a fierce red fire. When angered, he could shake the ground with his mighty roar. Those brave or foolish enough to summon Hagenti often asked him to teach them his magic of transformation. A famous story tells of a poor farmer who begged the spirit to help save his dying crops. Hagenti turned all the farmer's worthless rocks into precious gems, but warned that greed would turn the gems back to stone. The farmer shared his wealth with his whole village, and the gems stayed bright forever. People learned to approach Hagenti with respect and pure hearts, not greed. He tested those who called him, sometimes appearing as a small white mouse or a wise old man before revealing his true form. The spirit rewarded honest seekers with knowledge, but tricked those who tried to use his powers for selfish reasons. Hades ruled the Greek underworld, a vast kingdom beneath the earth where all souls traveled after death. Unlike other gods who lived on Mount Olympus, he chose to stay in his dark realm and rarely left it. His greatest power let him become invisible using a special helmet, which made other gods both fear and respect him. His appearance matched his kingdom. He had dark hair, a beard black as coal, and wore robes made from shadows. He rode in a chariot pulled by 4 black horses and carried a 2-pronged spear called a bident. Even the flowers near his throne were black, though they sparkled like jewels in the dim light. Hades fell in love with Persephone, daughter of the harvest goddess Demeter, and took her to be his queen. This sparked Demeter's anger, and she made the earth cold and bare until Zeus ordered Hades to return Persephone. They reached a deal. Persephone would spend half the year with Hades and half with her mother above ground. The seasons changed because of this deal. When Persephone stayed with Hades, Demeter made the world cold and plants died, creating winter. But when Persephone returned to her mother, Demeter blessed the earth with warmth and new growth, bringing spring. The Greeks used this story to explain why seasons changed and why crops grew at certain times of the year. Soaring through storm clouds on bronze wings, Halphas commanded armies of crows and brought war wherever he flew. This powerful demon lord earned his place among Hell's most feared generals by turning peaceful towns into battlegrounds. People spoke his name in whispers, believing the sound of it could make weapons appear in their hands against their will. From his human torso up, Halphas looked like a knight wrapped in dark armor that glowed with an odd green light. His lower half split into 4 legs like a giant crow, each ending in sharp metal talons. When he spread his wings, they stretched wider than 3 horses standing nose to tail. The story of Halphas tells how he once tricked a whole kingdom into fighting itself. He dropped feathers that turned into swords and spears as they fell. The weapons landed in the hands of farmers and merchants who had never fought before. Brother turned against brother until the fields ran red with blood, all while Halphas watched from above. The demon's power changed how people lived in strange ways. Families hung special charms above their doors to keep his feathers from falling inside. Mothers warned children never to pick up anything shiny during storms. Even today, some folks say that finding a bronze feather means war will soon follow. Mighty Hercules strode across ancient Greece as the strongest hero who ever lived. Born to Zeus, the king of gods, and a human mother, he possessed the power to lift mountains and wrestle giants. People both feared and loved him because he used his strength to protect cities from monsters, though his quick temper often caused trouble. Standing 7 feet tall with muscles like bronze statues, Hercules carried a wooden club big enough to knock down castle walls. His thick beard and wild hair made him look fierce, but his eyes showed kindness to friends and children. He wore a cape made from the skin of a lion he killed with his bare hands, which no weapon could pierce. The gods gave Hercules 12 impossible tasks to prove himself worthy after he made a terrible mistake. He fought the 9-headed Hydra snake, whose heads grew back twice as fast as he cut them off. He caught a golden deer that could outrun arrows, and he cleaned stables filled with enough cow waste to cover a town. He even held up the whole sky on his shoulders while the giant Atlas fetched golden apples from a magical garden. Farmers and traders left food at Hercules' temples because they believed he would give them strength for their work. Parents told their children to be brave like him, but wise enough to control their power. Even today, people use his name to describe someone with amazing strength, showing how his story still moves us. Heimdall stands guard at the Rainbow Bridge Bifrost, watching over the path between the human world and the home of the gods. His most amazing power lets him see anything happening 100 miles away and hear even wool growing on sheep. Gods and humans alike respect him as the first line of defense against giants and monsters who might attack. His appearance matches his role as the ever-vigilant guardian. Heimdall's eyes shine like golden stars, and his teeth gleam like pure silver. He wears bright white armor that never gets dirty or dull. His giant horn Jallarhorn hangs ready at his side, waiting to sound the alarm if danger comes. Heimdall once fought Loki, the god of tricks, at the Rainbow Bridge. The two gods battled as seals, splashing and diving in the waves below Bifrost. They fought over a magical necklace that Loki stole from the goddess Freya. In the end, Heimdall won back the necklace and returned it to its rightful owner. People living in the cold Norselands felt safer knowing Heimdall kept watch. Travelers would pray to him for protection on long journeys. Farmers trusted him to guard their homes and families while they worked in distant fields. His keen eyes and ears meant no threat could sneak past without him raising the alarm. Egyptians looked to the sky and saw Horus soaring above their cities and temples, a mighty falcon who carried the sun and moon in his eyes. As both bird and guardian, this powerful god watched over the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, giving them his strength and wisdom. People believed his right eye held the power of the sun, while his left eye contained the mysteries of the moon. A warrior of light and air, Horus stood as tall as a palm tree when he took human form, keeping his striking falcon head with its sharp, curved beak. Golden feathers covered his mighty chest, and his wings stretched wider than the biggest sailing ship on the Nile. His eyes glowed like jewels, one a brilliant gold, the other a shining silver. Ra, the sun god, chose Horus to fight Set, the cruel god who killed Horus's father Osiris. The battle raged across Egypt for 80 years, shaking the earth and sky. Set tore out Horus's left eye and broke it into pieces, but Horus fought back with courage and won the throne of Egypt. The healing god Thoth fixed Horus's eye, making it whole again, and this became a powerful symbol of healing and protection. Egyptian doctors used this symbol when they treated sick people, drawing it on medicine jars and healing charms. Parents would give their children small eye-shaped treasures called wadjet eyes to keep them safe from harm. Desert winds carried tales of the Ifrit, a mighty fire spirit from Arabian stories. These powerful beings of smoke and flame stood as tall as palm trees and commanded the burning sands. People both feared and sought out Ifrits, believing they held the power to grant wishes to those brave or foolish enough to capture them. Smoke swirled into human shapes when Ifrits walked the world. Their eyes glowed like hot coals, and their hair danced like living flames. Some said their footsteps left scorch marks in stone, and their laughter sounded like crackling fire. Though they could shrink to enter bottles and lamps, they preferred to tower over humans in their true form. One famous Ifrit met a fisherman who pulled a sealed copper flask from the sea. When the fisherman opened the flask, smoke poured out and became an angry Ifrit who had spent hundreds of years trapped inside. The spirit promised to grant the fisherman a choice of deaths for freeing him. But the clever fisherman tricked the Ifrit by asking how such a large being could fit in such a small flask. When the Ifrit went back inside to prove it could, the fisherman sealed the flask again. Arab traders told stories of Ifrits to explain the strange sights and sounds of desert travel. When wind howled across dunes or heat made the air shimmer, people said Ifrits danced nearby. Merchants hung charms in their tents to keep the fire spirits away, while some brave souls sought them out, hoping to win their favor and magical help. High in the demon hierarchy of hell, Epos commands 36 legions and moves through darkness as both a lion and a goose. This unusual spirit draws power from his ability to make humans wise and brave, though his gifts often come with hidden costs. Kings and warriors once sought his counsel before battles, hoping his insights would lead them to victory. His appearance strikes terror and wonder into those who witness it. The demon's head shows fierce lion features with sharp teeth gleaming in torchlight, while soft goose feathers cover his body in a strange mix of danger and grace. A crown sits crooked upon his mane, marking him as nobility among evil spirits. Epos shared his knowledge with a young prince who wished to save his kingdom from invaders. The demon taught him battle plans drawn from 1,000 years of war, but each victory hardened the prince's heart. Soon the gentle ruler became a feared conqueror who could not stop making war until his empire stretched across 3 continents. People learned to fear the sight of geese at night, believing Epos might be walking among them in disguise. Travelers carried special charms to ward him away, though some desperate souls still called his name 3 times in darkness when they needed forbidden wisdom. Those who dealt with him gained great power, but lost their peace of mind, haunted by the choices their new knowledge forced them to make. Egyptian people called upon Isis's magic to heal their sick and protect their children. She wielded powers over life and death, commanding respect as the most powerful goddess of ancient Egypt. Her wings could fan life back into the dead, and she knew secret words that could cure any disease. Dark hair flowed down her shoulders like the Nile River itself, while golden wings sprouted from her arms like those of a protective mother bird. A throne perched atop her head marked her as queen of the gods, though she often appeared as a normal woman to help common people in need. When her husband Osiris died, Isis searched the entire world to find his scattered body parts. She gathered each piece and used her magic to bring him back to life, becoming the first person to overcome death itself. Her tears of joy created the Nile's yearly flood that made the desert bloom with crops. People brought sick children to her temples, where her priests gave them medicine and whispered her healing words. Farmers left her small gifts before planting their fields, believing she would bless their crops. Even now, some Egyptian families tell stories about a kind woman with wings who visits sick children at night and makes them well again. Japanese gods feared Izanagi's power to create and destroy entire lands. This master of life and death carried a spear that dripped with salt water, and each drop formed new islands in the ocean. People built shrines to honor him, hoping he would use his powers to protect their homes rather than wash them away with floods. His long black hair flowed like dark rivers down his back, and his robes shimmered like moonlight on water. The jewels that hung from his belt clinked together when he walked, warning people that a god approached. His spear, called Amenonuhoko, stretched as tall as 10 men and glowed with a blue light that matched the sea. Izanagi once broke the rules of death itself to find his beloved wife in the underworld. He lit a torch in the darkness and saw her body had rotted away. In his shock, he ran back to the living world while she chased him, angry that he had seen her cursed form. He blocked the entrance to the underworld with a huge boulder, trapping her forever in the land of the dead. The god cleaned himself in a river to wash away the touch of death, and his actions created new gods. When he cleaned his left eye, he made Amaterasu, the sun goddess. His right eye formed Tsukuyomi, god of the moon. From his nose came Susanoo, the storm god. These 3 children shaped the world of ancient Japan, ruling over day, night, and the wild forces of nature. Desert winds carried stories of the jinn, powerful spirits born from smokeless fire who roamed the sands of Arabia. These shape-shifting beings could grant wishes or bring ruin, changing from human to animal forms at will. People both sought their help and feared their tricks, leaving out small gifts to keep them happy. The jinn stood as tall as date palms when they wished, though they often chose to look like regular people or animals to move unseen among humans. Their eyes glowed like embers, and their feet never quite touched the ground. When angry, their bodies turned to whirling smoke and flame. One jinn met a poor fisherman who found an old brass lamp in his nets. When the fisherman opened it, the djinn burst out in a cloud of smoke, growing larger and larger until it blocked out the sun. The djinn had spent 1,000 years trapped inside, and now planned to kill whoever freed it. The clever fisherman tricked the djinn by saying he didn't believe such a huge being could fit in such a tiny lamp. The djinn, proud and eager to prove itself, shrank back into smoke and poured into the lamp. The fisherman quickly sealed it shut, only agreeing to free the djinn again if it promised to grant him wishes instead of threats. Jörmungandr lived in the deep seas around the Viking world, so huge it wrapped all the way around the earth like a belt. This mighty serpent grew so large that it could bite its own tail, keeping the world in perfect balance. The Norse people both feared and respected this beast, as its movements could sink ships and cause huge waves. Its head looked much like a dragon's, with sharp teeth longer than Viking ships and eyes that glowed green like the northern lights. The rest of its body stretched endlessly through the waves, covered in scales that shone like wet rocks in the moonlight. Some sailors said its breath smelled like rotting fish and could make a person faint. Thor, the god of thunder, once tried to catch this giant snake while fishing. He used an ox head as bait and almost pulled Jörmungandr from the sea. The serpent thrashed so hard it nearly sank Thor's boat. Thor's helper cut the line at the last minute, letting the beast slip back into the deep water. The Vikings believed Jörmungandr kept the world in check, but they also knew it spelled doom. When the serpent finally lets go of its tail, they said, "The world will end." This made sailors very careful about crossing the seas, often leaving gifts of food on the waves to keep the mighty snake happy and sleeping in the depths. Among the fierce deities of ancient India, Kali stands as a force of pure destruction and renewal. She dances across battlefields with her necklace of human skulls, bringing both terror and freedom to those who meet her gaze. People feared her endless hunger for evil souls, yet they also turned to her as a mother figure who protected them from demons and darkness. Black as the darkest night, Kali towers above mortals with her wild hair flowing like storm clouds. Her 4 arms each hold weapons or magical objects, a sword that cuts through illusion, a severed head that represents death, a bowl to catch blood, and a hand raised in blessing. Her long tongue sticks out to show her thirst for battle, while her eyes burn with the fire of 10,000 suns. She made herself known during an epic fight against a demon who could clone himself each time a drop of his blood hit the ground. Every other god had failed to defeat him as his copies grew into an endless army. Kali solved this problem by drinking all his blood before it could touch the earth, then dancing on his body until no life remained in any of his forms. People built temples to honor Kali and asked for her help in fighting their inner demons, the parts of themselves they wanted to change or destroy. Some devotees would gather at night to sing her name and dance like she did, hoping to find freedom through her power. Today, many still see her as a symbol of time itself, which destroys all things but also makes way for new life to grow. Japanese skies once belonged to the Karura, a giant bird-like guardian who kept the land safe from evil serpents. This mighty creature possessed both the strength of an eagle and the wisdom of the gods, making it one of the most respected beings in Buddhist folklore. People looked up to the Karura as their protector, believing it watched over them from golden clouds where it made its home. The Karura stood taller than 3 pine trees, with feathers that shone like polished copper in the sun. Its razor-sharp beak could cut through diamond, while its wings created storms when they moved. The creature's eyes glowed like fire opals, and its tail sparkled with all the colors of dawn. This sacred bird spent its days hunting down wicked snake spirits called Naga, who lived underwater and caused trouble for humans. The Karura would dive from the heavens at speeds faster than lightning, snatching these serpents from lakes and rivers before they could harm anyone. Some say the thunder we hear comes from its mighty wings as it chases its prey. Farmers and fishers left small gifts for the Karura at shrines near bodies of water, hoping it would protect their boats and crops from floods the Naga caused. The creature became so loved that people carved its image into temple walls and painted it on ships' sails. Even today, many Japanese airports and airlines use the Karura as their symbol, keeping alive the story of the great guardian of the skies. Buddhist temples across Thailand tell stories of magical beings called Kinara. half-human and half-bird creatures who dance through sacred forests. These graceful spirits guard precious knowledge of music, poetry, and dance. People travel great distances to pray near temple carvings of Kinnara, hoping to gain wisdom and artistic talents. The Kinnara show their beauty in two striking forms. From the waist up, they appear as lovely humans wearing golden crowns decorated with jewels. Below the waist, their bodies transform into magnificent birds with wings of gold and red feathers that shimmer like sunrise. When they move, their steps blend human dancing with the light, quick movements of songbirds. One tale speaks of a young Kinnara named Manohara who caught the eye of Prince Sudhana while dancing in a forest pool. The prince fell deeply in love with her grace and wisdom, but jealous nobles tried to keep them apart. Manohara gave the prince a magic ring that would lead him back to her, then flew away to protect him from those who wished him harm. Through many lands the prince searched for his beloved Kinnara, following the ring's gentle pull. He crossed rivers, climbed mountains, and walked through flames until he found her in a hidden valley. Their reunion brought such joy that the gods blessed their marriage, proving that true love could bridge the gap between the human and spirit worlds. Fox spirits called kitsune roamed the forests and mountains of Japan, wielding powerful magic that let them change their shape at will. These clever beings could turn into beautiful women, wealthy merchants, or remain in their fox form with up to 9 magnificent tails. People both feared and respected kitsune because they rewarded kindness with good fortune, but punished those who wronged them with tricks and curses. A kitsune in its true form stood as tall as a large dog, with fur that glowed like moonlight and eyes that sparkled with wisdom. Some had just one tail, but the oldest and most powerful kitsune grew a new tail for each 100 years they lived. The most famous kitsune had 9 tails, golden fur, and knew all the secrets of the world. The story of the merchant Tokutaro shows the dual nature of these spirits. He helped an injured fox on the road and later met a beautiful woman who became his wife. She brought him wealth and happiness for many years until a guest noticed her shadow on the wall had a tail. The wife changed back into a fox and vanished, but continued to send him gifts as thanks for his kindness. People looked for signs of kitsune everywhere. They believed these spirits could possess others, create phantom fires in the night, and even take control of their dreams. Families left offerings at fox shrines to earn the spirits' favor and protection, while travelers carried charms to guard against kitsune who might lead them astray with false lights and illusions. Alpine villages whisper tales of Krampus, a fearsome demon who punishes naughty children during winter nights. This horned creature carries chains and bells that echo through snowy streets each December. Parents once used stories of Krampus to make sure their children stayed well-behaved all year long. Half goat and half demon, Krampus towers above humans at 8 feet tall. His dark fur covers his body while his face shows sharp teeth and a long red tongue. 2 twisted horns curve up from his head, and 1 cloven hoof stamps the ground while the other kicks at misbehaving kids. Krampus works as St. Nicholas's dark partner on December 5th, known as Krampusnacht, or Krampus Night. While St. Nicholas gives gifts to good children, Krampus stuffs the naughty ones into his sack. He then takes them to his lair, where they must think about their bad deeds. Young men in alpine towns dress up as Krampus and run through the streets in a parade called Krampuslauf. They wear wooden masks carved with scary faces and shake rusty chains at watching crowds. Some people give them drinks to keep Krampus happy while others run away laughing and screaming. Krishna dwells in the heavenly city of Vaikuntha, governing both the cosmos and human hearts. As an avatar of Vishnu, he wields divine powers to protect good and destroy evil. People across India worship him as a god of love, wisdom, and justice because he guides humans toward living better lives. His deep blue skin glows like twilight, and a peacock feather adorns his crown. 4 powerful arms allow him to play his enchanted flute while holding weapons that defend the innocent. He wears bright yellow silk and a garland of forest flowers, looking both royal and approachable. A gentle smile plays on his face as he watches over his followers. During a great war, Krishna served as chariot driver for the warrior Arjuna. Before the battle began, Arjuna felt unsure about fighting his own family members. Krishna shared special wisdom that helped Arjuna understand his duty, that sometimes we must take difficult actions to protect what is right. This conversation became a famous holy book called the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna brings joy to his followers through music and dance. His flute playing charms everyone who hears it, from humble cowherds to mighty kings. People say the sound of his flute calls to their souls, reminding them of divine love. Even today, millions of people celebrate Krishna's playful spirit in festivals with singing, dancing, and sharing sweet foods. Mighty Lamassu guarded the gates of ancient cities across Mesopotamia, combining the strength of 4 powerful creatures in one divine protector. These watchful beings possessed both fierce physical might and deep spiritual wisdom, earning the trust of kings and common folk alike. People believed Lamassu could spot evil from miles away and stop it before it reached their homes. The guardian creature stood as tall as 2 men, with the proud head of a human showing a neatly braided beard and gentle eyes. Its body mixed the best parts of a bull and lion, the bull's strong chest and the lion's nimble legs, while great eagle wings stretched out from its sides. Some Lamassu wore tall crowns carved with special marks that gave them extra power, making them even more impressive. Kings put giant stone Lamassu at their palace doors, where the creatures used clever tricks to seem alive. From the front, the guardian stood firm and strong. From the side, it appeared to walk forward, thanks to an extra leg the artists carved with care. This moving illusion made visitors feel the Lamassu watched their every step. Common people kept small clay figures of Lamassu in their homes and shops to chase away bad luck and illness. Mothers told their children that Lamassu stayed awake all night to fight off bad dreams, which helped little ones sleep better. Traders would touch the guardian's foot before starting a journey, believing this simple act would keep them safe on the road. Babylonian demon Lamashtu terrorized new mothers and their babies from the shadows of ancient Mesopotamia. This powerful daughter of the sky god Anu chose to leave her home in heaven, driven by her hunger for human flesh and blood. Parents feared her more than any other spirit because she could slip into homes at night, stealing and eating newborn children while their mothers slept. She walked on all 4s like a wild beast, with the head of a lion crowned by donkey's ears and tangled hair. Her body combined human and animal parts, bird talons for feet, long fingers tipped with sharp claws, and the teeth of a donkey filled her mouth. From her chest, a baby could sometimes be seen feeding, though this sight brought only horror, not comfort. Lamashtu would creep into birthing rooms disguised as a midwife, waiting for her chance to snatch the newborn child. She also caused fevers in pregnant women and made their milk turn sour. When families discovered their baby missing, they often found tiny footprints by the bed, marking where she had crouched to feed on their infant's flesh. People hung special charms near their beds and doorways to keep Lamashtu away. They also placed offerings of centipedes and bronze pins outside their homes, hoping these would distract her. Mothers wore particular amulets showing another demon named Pazuzu, who fought with Lamashtu and could chase her back to the mountains where she lived between attacks. Deep beneath Mediterranean waters, legions of small fish swim as one massive shape, moving like a giant sea serpent. These clever ocean dwellers discovered that working together makes them stronger than swimming alone. When hundreds or thousands of fish join forces, they can scare away big predators and find food more easily. Each fish measures just a few inches long, with silver scales that catch sunlight like tiny mirrors. Their fins flutter in perfect time as they copy the movements of their neighbors. From far away, all these little fish blur into one big, flowing form that other sea creatures mistake for a much larger animal. Roman sailors told stories of meeting these swimming armies at sea. The fish would surround their boats, rising up from the depths like living towers of scales and fins. Sometimes the fish formed shapes that looked like sea monsters or giant squids, which sent many sailors racing back to shore with wild tales to tell. Scientists now know these fish use special signals to coordinate their movements, like dancers following secret cues. The fish can twist themselves into balls, ribbons, or spirals within seconds. This teamwork helps them survive, proving that even little creatures can do amazing things when they work together. Among the windswept sands of ancient Mesopotamia, Lilith emerged as a fierce spirit of storms and night. She commanded winds that howled across empty cities and through moonlit gardens. People both feared and admired her strength, marking their doors with special signs to keep their children safe from her wild powers. Looking at Lilith meant facing a striking mix of beauty and danger. Her dark hair floated like smoke around her shoulders, while wings black as midnight stretched from her back. Sharp owl claws replaced her feet, letting her grab prey and soar through darkness. Her eyes glowed red like desert embers, and her smile could charm or terrify depending on her mood. Lilith refused to bow to anyone's rules, even those of the gods. When told to obey Adam as his wife, she spoke the secret name of God and flew away from Eden into the vast desert. She chose freedom over a life of following orders, becoming the first person to leave paradise by her own choice. Mothers and fathers whispered her name with worry, but young women sometimes saw her differently. They painted her symbol on secret walls and spoke of her courage to live freely. Some even left small gifts for her, bowls of milk or silver coins, hoping she would share some of her fierce independence with them. While most feared her nightly visits, others saw her as a guardian of those who dared to choose their own path. Loki stalked through the halls of Asgard, a shape-shifting god who could become anyone or anything. His quick mind and silver tongue made him both useful and dangerous to the other gods. People feared his tricks, but respected his clever solutions when problems arose. His tall, lean form and sharp features marked him as different from the warrior gods around him. Red hair framed a face that seemed to smile even when plotting trouble. He moved like a cat watching its prey, graceful but ready to pounce. Loki once tricked the blind god Hodur into killing his own brother Baldur, the most beloved of all gods. He gave Hodur a dart made from mistletoe, the one thing that could harm Baldur, and guided his hand as he threw it. The weapon struck true, and Baldur fell dead, bringing winter and weeping to the world. The gods chained Loki beneath the earth with chains made from his own son's guts. A snake hung above him, dripping venom onto his face. His wife Saigen caught the drops in a bowl, but when she turned to empty it, the venom burned him. His twisting in pain caused earthquakes in the world above. Above the clouds in heaven, Lucifer shone as God's most beautiful angel. His wings glowed like pure sunlight, and his voice carried music sweeter than any choir. People both admired and feared him as the bearer of light, a name that matched his role as the brightest of all angels. Yet his true power lay in his charm and wisdom, gifts that would later shape his most famous choice. Each of Lucifer's 6 wings sparkled with countless jewels, as if stars had been woven into their feathers. His face held such perfect beauty that other angels found it hard to look at him directly. Even his throne sat higher than other angels, carved from precious stones that caught and spread light through heaven's halls. Pride grew in Lucifer's heart as he watched God receive praise from lesser angels. He gathered followers among the heavenly host, telling them they deserved better than to bow before anyone. Soon 1/3 of all angels stood with him, ready to claim what they saw as their rightful place. War broke out in heaven when Lucifer led his army against God's faithful angels. The battle raged until Michael, God's warrior angel, struck Lucifer down with a flaming sword. Like a falling star, Lucifer plunged from heaven into a new realm called Hell, where his light dimmed and his beauty twisted into something darker. Lucifer became known as Satan, the tempter who tests human faith and challenges divine authority. His fall changed him from the brightest angel to the ruler of shadows, but he kept his clever mind and silver tongue. Now he walks through human dreams and whispers promises of power, remembering his own taste of glory and the price it cost him. Far beneath the earth's surface, Mammon ruled over endless caves filled with gold and silver. This greedy demon prince commanded armies of lesser spirits who gathered riches from every corner of the world. People both feared and admired Mammon because he could make anyone wealthy, but his gifts always came with a terrible price. His huge body sparkled like polished metal, with gems for eyes and golden horns that curled around his head like a crown. Coins fell from his mouth when he spoke, and his long fingers ended in diamond claws that could tear through rock to find hidden treasure. Mammon's wings looked like sheets of copper, and the ground turned to precious metal wherever he walked. Mammon once offered a poor farmer endless wealth if the man would give up his family. The farmer agreed, and his house filled with gold while his wife and children turned to silver statues. When the farmer begged Mammon to undo the curse, the demon prince laughed and turned him into a golden statue too. Their farm became a warning to others about the true cost of greed. People built temples to Mammon hoping to win his favor, but their prayers often brought ruin instead of riches. Merchants left gold at crossroads as gifts for him, then found their profits turned to worthless dust by morning. Some said Mammon collected greedy souls like coins, storing them in a vast vault deep underground where they would count money forever without rest. South of the Himalayas, in lands filled with dense forests and flowing rivers, the Manusia guards ancient temples with fierce loyalty. Half human and half lion, this mighty being combines the wisdom of people with the raw strength of the king of beasts. Local villagers leave offerings at temple steps, hoping to gain the Manusia's blessing and protection for their homes. The Manusia stands as tall as 2 grown men, with golden fur that glows like morning sunlight. Its face shows both human and feline features, sharp eyes that see in darkness, a noble nose, and teeth that could crack stone. Powerful arms end in hands that can hold weapons, while its lion legs allow it to run faster than horses and jump higher than tigers. Legends tell of a time when evil spirits tried to steal sacred texts from a grand temple. The Manusia sprang from its stone perch, its roar shaking the very earth. It chased the spirits through jungle and valley, catching them one by one until the stolen wisdom returned to its rightful place. Since that night, no spirit has dared to test the guardian's watchful gaze. People built statues of the Manusia at their temple entrances, believing its presence would keep away dark forces and welcome good souls. Parents told their children that the gentle guardian would protect them while they slept, but warned that it could smell lies and bad deeds from miles away. Temple dancers copied its graceful movements in their sacred performances, spinning tales of its courage through song and dance. Beneath stormy skies, Marcosius soared as a mighty wolf with griffin wings and a serpent's tail. This fallen angel commanded 30 legions of spirits in hell, making him one of the most powerful demons known to medieval scholars. Though fierce in battle, he spoke with surprising honesty about his fall from heaven and his hope to return to the angels' ranks after 1,200 years. His massive form struck terror into those who saw him. Fire blazed from his jaws when he roared, and his eyes glowed like burning coals. The demon could change his shape at will, but he liked to keep his wings spread wide to show his power. His tail could wrap around church towers and crush them to dust. Kings and nobles sought his help in battle, drawing magic circles and burning special incense to call him forth. Marcosius taught his followers the secrets of throwing voice, herbs that could heal wounds, and ways to win any fight. He asked only for their respect in return, treating those who showed him honor with unexpected kindness. People said Marcosius fought alongside great rulers in secret. His magic helped armies cross rivers that should have been too deep, and his fire lit the way through darkness. Even those who feared demons spoke of him with a mix of dread and admiration, for he kept his word and never tricked his followers like other spirits did. Medusa led her Gorgon sisters through the ancient Greek islands, turning anyone who looked at her face to stone. Her head of writhing snakes and deadly stone gaze made her unlike any other creature in mythology. While humans shunned and feared her, their greatest heroes sought her out, hoping to claim the power of her cursed form. She stood 7 feet tall, with bronze claws and wings folded against her back. Instead of hair, living snakes grew from her head, each one moving on its own. Her skin gleamed like copper in the sun. When she opened her eyes, they glowed with an eerie yellow light that could freeze people where they stood. The hero Perseus hunted Medusa in her island cave home. He used his shield as a mirror to avoid her deadly gaze. With one swing of his sword, he cut off her head. Even after death, her eyes still held their power to turn living things to stone. The gods had cursed Medusa, changing her from a beautiful young woman into a monster. Athena punished her after catching her with Poseidon in a sacred temple. The transformation brought pain, but it also gave Medusa strength. No one could harm her as long as she kept her eyes open and faced her foes. Ancient German tales speak of Mephistopheles, a clever demon who made deals with humans to buy their souls. He stood out from other devils because he dressed like a well-mannered gentleman and spoke with charm and wit. People both feared and admired him for his skill at turning their deepest wishes into cruel tricks. Wearing fine clothes and a red cape, Mephistopheles looked more like a rich merchant than a demon. His face stayed young and handsome, but sharp teeth flashed when he smiled. He carried a walking stick topped with gold, and his shadow sometimes showed horns and claws even when his human form did not. The story of Dr. Faust shows how Mephistopheles worked his magic. The demon promised to give Faust all the knowledge in the world for 24 years. In return, Faust signed away his soul with his own blood. Mephistopheles kept his word but twisted every gift into something painful, turning Faust's dream of wisdom into a nightmare. German villagers grew so scared of making deals that they refused to sign contracts after sunset. Parents warned children never to shake hands with well-dressed strangers or accept gifts from unknown merchants. Some people even turned their mirrors around at night, believing Mephistopheles used them as doorways into their homes. Mercury soared through the skies of ancient Rome as the fastest of all gods. His winged sandals let him fly between heaven and earth in seconds, carrying messages for the mighty Jupiter. People looked to him as their guide in trade and travel, hoping his quick wit would help them make good deals and find safe paths. His appearance marked him as special from first glance. 2 tiny wings sprouted from his golden sandals, with another pair perched upon his traveler's hat. He carried a special staff called a caduceus, wrapped with 2 snakes that brought peace to any quarrel. His young, athletic build helped him race across the world without tiring. One day Mercury spotted a tortoise walking along the shore. Using his clever mind, he picked up the shell and strung it with strings made from cowgut, creating the first lyre. The sweet music caught the ear of Apollo, who traded Mercury his prized cattle for the new instrument. This deal showed how Mercury's quick thinking often led to unexpected rewards. The Roman people built shrines to Mercury at crossroads and in marketplaces. Merchants prayed to him before important deals, while travelers asked for his blessing before starting long journeys. His speed and cleverness made him the perfect god for anyone who needed to think fast or move quickly, from messengers to salespeople. Mokosh walked the damp earth of ancient Slavic lands, spinning the fates of mortals with her nimble fingers. As the only goddess among the main gods of Kiev, she held power over women's work, fertility, and the endless cycle of weaving life's threads. Farmfolk and city dwellers alike sought her blessing, knowing she could grant good fortune or tangle their destinies into knots. Her form shifted like morning mist, but most often she appeared as a woman with long golden hair and arms that reached from the clouds to the soil below. A spindle danced in her right hand while her left scattered seeds across freshly plowed fields. Her eyes sparkled like dew on spider webs, seeing both the small daily tasks of women and the grand pattern of fate itself. Each night, Mokosh spun wool into thread alongside mortal women, teaching them to weave cloth strong enough to warm their families through bitter winters. She showed special kindness to sheep herders and flax growers, but turned her face away from those who broke promises or told lies. The sound of her spindle brought comfort to worried mothers and courage to young wives facing difficult births. Under her watchful gaze, women learned to turn raw wool and flax into beautiful cloth, a skill as valuable as gold in those times. Mokosh knew the secret ways of plants too, which herbs healed wounds, which eased pain, which brought peaceful sleep. Even today, some Slavic women leave small offerings of bread and cloth by their spinning wheels, remembering the goddess who taught their ancestors to spin both thread and destiny. Ancient Phoenicians trembled at the name Moloch, a mighty god who demanded the most terrible offerings from his followers. This towering figure of bronze and brass stood in cities across the Mediterranean, his hollow metal body heated by fires that burned day and night. Parents both feared and worshipped him, believing he held the power to bring good harvests, victory in battle, and protection from evil. But his help came at an awful price. The god took the form of a giant man with the head of a bull, his arms stretched out to hold his burning bronze altar. His metal skin glowed red-hot from the flames within, and his eyes seemed to watch every movement of those who came before him. Smoke poured from his open mouth, rising up to the sky like black clouds that blocked out the sun. Kings and priests claimed Moloch spoke to them through the roar of his flames, telling them what he wanted in return for his favor. They built great temples around his metal body, where crowds gathered to give him gifts of food, gold, and precious stones. But when times grew hard, when crops failed or enemies drew near, Moloch asked for more than gold. He demanded children. The sound of drums and flutes filled the air during Moloch's ceremonies, played so loudly they drowned out all other noise. Parents who brought their children to the temple received special honors, their names carved into stone tablets as heroes of the city. The priests promised these families that their sacrificed children would become divine messengers, carrying prayers straight to the mighty god himself. Even as other gods fell out of favor, fear of Moloch's power kept his fires burning for hundreds of years. Deep beneath the earth, Naberius rules as one of hell's most powerful demons. As a master of disguise, he shifts between the forms of a fierce three-headed dog and a gentle black crow at will. Kings and nobles once sought his wisdom, drawn by his gift for teaching logic and the hidden arts of speech. His most striking appearance comes when he takes human shape to walk among mortals. A tall figure in a black general's uniform strides forward with perfect grace, while his deep voice makes even brave soldiers tremble. Those who face him say his words feel like sharp hooks pulling at their minds, testing their courage and their wit. King Solomon himself called on Naberius during the building of his great temple. The demon appeared in a puff of black smoke, speaking in riddles that helped the wise king solve problems no human could answer. But each piece of wisdom came with a price. Solomon had to match the demon's skill in debate or risk losing his royal power. Townsfolk lived in fear that Naberius might test their minds with his cruel puzzles. Parents warned children to stay alert and think carefully before speaking, since the demon could turn simple words against them. Yet those who pleased him with clever answers found themselves blessed with quick minds and silver tongues, making them natural leaders among their people. Lions stalk the dusty plains of India, but none match the power of Narasimha, who emerged from a temple pillar as half man and half lion. This fierce guardian deity showed both wisdom and rage, protecting good people while punishing evil ones. His claws could tear through steel, his roar shook mountains, and his very presence made demons tremble. Imagine a warrior with a human body wrapped in golden fur, crowned by a lion's majestic head. Flames dance in his eyes like tiny suns, while his sharp teeth gleam like pearls. His 4 strong arms can hold weapons, crush enemies, or bless followers with gentle touches. A ring of fire burns around him day and night, keeping evil forces away. The story of his birth still echoes across India today. When a cruel king claimed he was stronger than any god, his son prayed for help against him. As the sun set one evening, Narasimha burst from a pillar in the palace hall. He fought the king at twilight, using no weapons except his claws, following divine rules that made the battle fair. People built temples to honor Narasimha, seeing him as a perfect mix of mind and power. Farmers asked for his blessing before planting crops, while warriors prayed to him for courage. Children learned that even the strongest must follow rules, just as Narasimha fought his great battle at twilight, not too early, not too late, but at exactly the right time. Nuwa ruled the skies of ancient China as a mighty goddess with the power to shape the world itself. Half woman and half snake, she moved between heaven and earth with grace and strength. When she looked down at the empty lands below, she felt lonely and decided to create living beings to fill the world with joy and wonder. She knelt by a riverbank and scooped up yellow clay in her delicate hands. Like a child playing with mud, she shaped small figures one by one, breathing life into each creation. The wealthy and powerful sprang from the first figures she carefully crafted. As she worked faster, using strings to let the clay figures drop to earth, these became the common people. Some stories tell of her greatest deed, fixing the broken sky. After a terrible battle between fire and water gods, huge holes appeared in the heavens, letting storms and flames rain down on earth. Nuwa gathered 5 colored stones, melted them in a divine furnace, and patched the holes in the sky. She cut off the legs of a giant turtle and used them as pillars to hold up the heavens. Her love for the world and its people showed in everything she did. When floods threatened to drown her creation, she built dams and taught humans to live in harmony with nature. She gave them the gift of marriage so they could build families and communities. Even today, Chinese people honor her as the mother of all humanity, the goddess who shaped both the land and its people with loving care. Norse people believed Odin rode across their lands on Sleipnir, an 8-legged horse with magical speed and strength. This mighty steed carried the one-eyed god between worlds, jumping from earth to sky as easily as crossing a stream. No wall could stop Sleipnir, and no other horse could match its power to race through air, water, and land. Sleipnir stood taller than any horse alive, with a coat that shimmered like starlight against snow. 4 legs grew from each side of its body, moving together in perfect harmony when it ran. Its mane and tail glowed with an inner fire, and its hooves left marks that burned the ground wherever they fell. The horse came from a rather odd family story. Its mother was actually Loki, the trickster god, who had turned himself into a mare. Loki did this to distract a giant's powerful stallion, whose work would have cost the gods their home. The plan worked too well, and months later, Loki gave Sleipnir to Odin as a gift. Norse warriors painted Sleipnir's image on their shields and carved it into their ships for luck at sea. They believed seeing 8 hoofprints in the morning frost meant Odin had ridden past their homes during the night, bringing wisdom and protection to their families. Some say the horse still gallops across the northern skies, carrying messages between gods and humans. Greek legends tell of Odysseus, a clever king who sailed the seas for 10 years trying to reach his home. His quick thinking and silver tongue helped him escape monsters, enchantresses, and angry gods. The stories say he could talk his way out of any trouble, though his pride often landed him in worse danger. Odysseus looked like any other Greek warrior king, but carried himself with unusual grace. He wore bronze armor that gleamed in the sun and kept a powerful bow close at hand. His sharp eyes missed nothing, and a small scar on his leg marked him as the hero he truly was. People say he smiled most when plotting his next clever plan. One day he met a giant who liked to eat people. The giant trapped Odysseus and his men in a cave. Odysseus got the giant drunk on strong wine. When the giant fell asleep, Odysseus told his men to sharpen a huge wooden pole. They heated the tip in the fire and rammed it into the giant's only eye. The blind giant screamed so loud the mountains shook. The gods both loved and hated Odysseus for his tricks. The goddess of wisdom smiled at his plans, while the god of the sea tried to kill him at every chance. Yet Odysseus kept sailing home, using his wits to survive. Each time he faced death, he found a new way to fool his enemies and stay alive. His journey taught sailors to be clever, not just strong. People still tell his stories to show that brains beat brawn. In Greece, parents would say to their children, "Be smart like Odysseus, and you'll find your way home." Osiris ruled as king of the afterlife along the waters of the Nile River in ancient Egypt. He held the power to grant eternal life to worthy souls who passed his judgment. Both common people and mighty pharaohs hoped to win his favor, since he alone could open the gates to paradise after death. He stood tall and regal, with skin the color of fertile green plants or the rich black soil of the Nile. A curved staff and farming tool rested in his hands, showing his connection to growing things. White linen wrappings covered most of his body, as he died and came back to life long ago. His brother Set grew jealous and tricked Osiris into lying down in a beautiful chest at a feast. Set slammed the lid shut and threw the chest into the Nile. Osiris's wife Isis searched the whole world and found his body. She used magic to bring him back to life, but he could only live in the afterlife from then on. The story of his death and return changed how Egyptians saw life after death. They wrapped their dead in linen like Osiris wore and buried them with spells to help them reach his kingdom. People planted seeds in the shape of Osiris, watching them grow as a sign that life goes on after death. Each year when the Nile flooded, people said Osiris's power made the waters rise to water their crops. Farmers left little gifts of grain and beer at his temples. They believed that just as Osiris came back from death, their planted seeds would sprout again in spring. Beneath Arabia's endless sands, Paimon rode across the dunes on a mighty camel draped in gold. This powerful spirit king commanded 200 demon armies and taught humans the secrets of art and science. His voice rang like bells, yet those who heard its musical sound found themselves bound to his will. Paimon appeared as a young man with a delicate face wearing a sparkling crown. His skin glowed like moonlight on water, and precious gems covered his royal robes. When he moved, the air filled with strange music that made listeners feel dizzy. A ring of dancing spirits always circled around him, playing drums and singing songs no human could understand. Those who called upon Paimon learned the mysteries of the mind and the hidden laws of nature. He showed them how to bend time, speak with spirits, and see distant places in their dreams. But his knowledge came at a price. Students had to give him their complete loyalty and follow his strict rules without question. Kings and wise men sought Paimon's help to build great cities and win wars. He guided their hands as they drew maps of the stars and wrote down the first laws of magic. Yet even the bravest leaders trembled when making deals with him, for Paimon never forgot a promise and punished those who broke their word by turning them into living statues of sand. Ancient Greeks knew Pan as nature's wild guardian. He roamed the forests and mountains of Arcadia, playing magical music on his reed pipes that could fill listeners with either peaceful joy or sudden terror. His ability to cause widespread fear gave us the word panic, named after his powerful influence over both humans and animals. Half man and half goat, Pan stood on goat legs with curved horns sprouting from his curly hair. His face combined human and goat features, with a beard, pointed ears, and eyes that glowed like amber in the dark. Despite his strange looks, he moved through the wilderness as smoothly as water flows downstream. One day, Pan fell in love with a river nymph named Syrinx, who ran away from his advances. Just as he nearly caught her, she turned into a cluster of river reeds. The frustrated god heard the wind blowing through these reeds and got an idea. He cut the reeds into different lengths, tied them together, and created the first pan flute. Shepherds and farmers left small gifts for Pan near caves and trees, hoping he would protect their flocks and crops. They played music and danced at sunset, when Pan was most likely to join their celebrations. Smart travelers avoided making loud noises in the wilderness at noon. That was Pan's nap time, and no one wanted to face an angry god with a headache. Fierce winds howled across ancient Mesopotamia when Pazuzu, king of the wind demons, took flight. His most powerful gift let him command storms and bring either cooling breezes or deadly plagues to the lands below. People both feared and sought his help, knowing he could fight off other evil spirits, especially Lamashtu, a demon who harmed pregnant women and babies. Pazuzu's body mixed parts from different animals into one terrifying shape. He stood as tall as 3 men with the muscled chest of a human, sharp claws of a lion, and 2 pairs of wings like a giant locust. A dog-like face with bulging eyes topped his body, and a scorpion's tail curved up behind him. The Demon King fought many battles against Lamashtu, chasing her away from homes where pregnant women lived. He watched from stone carvings that people hung on their walls and wore as small tokens around their necks. These showed his scary face and gave him the power to guard mothers and their children. People called on Pazuzu when illness spread through their towns or when crops needed rain. They believed his powers over the wind could blow sickness away or bring storm clouds filled with water. Even though he looked scary, many saw him as a protector who kept worse demons away, like a guard dog who frightens strangers but helps its own family. Beautiful Persephone ruled as queen of the underworld for half of each year, bringing winter to the world above while she sat on her dark throne. The daughter of harvest goddess Demeter could make flowers bloom with a touch in spring and summer, but her power turned to shadow when she joined her husband Hades beneath the earth. People both loved and feared her since she controlled the cycle of seasons that meant life or death for their crops. She started as a young goddess picking flowers in a sunny meadow when the ground split open. Hades, king of the dead, rode up in his black chariot and carried her away to his kingdom. He gave her a throne, fine robes, and a crown of gold, but Persephone missed the warmth of sunlight and her mother's loving care. Demeter searched the world for her missing daughter, letting crops wither and the earth freeze in her grief. The other gods finally told her where Persephone had gone. But because Persephone had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds in the underworld, she had to stay there part of each year. When she returned to the surface, spring bloomed and her mother made the world green again. Now Persephone walks between 2 worlds, bringing growth and decay in their proper times. She guides dead souls to their rest with gentle hands, while above ground she wakes sleeping seeds. Her yearly journey teaches that endings lead to new beginnings, just as winter always turns to spring. Beautiful Persephone ruled as queen of the underworld for half of each year, bringing winter to the world above while she sat on her dark throne. The daughter of harvest goddess Demeter could make flowers bloom with a touch in spring and summer, but her power turned to shadow when she joined her husband Hades beneath the earth. People both loved and feared her since she controlled the cycle of seasons that meant life or death for their crops. She started as a young goddess picking flowers in a sunny meadow when the ground split open. Hades, king of the dead, rode up in his black chariot and carried her away to his kingdom. He gave her a throne, fine robes, and a crown of gold, but Persephone missed the warmth of sunlight and her mother's loving care. Demeter searched the world for her missing daughter, letting crops wither and the earth freeze in her grief. The other gods finally told her where Persephone had gone. But because Persephone had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds in the underworld, she had to stay there part of each year. When she returned to the surface, spring bloomed and her mother made the world green again. Now Persephone walks between 2 worlds, bringing growth and decay in their proper times. She guides dead souls to their rest with gentle hands, while above ground she wakes sleeping seeds. Her yearly journey teaches that endings lead to new beginnings, just as winter always turns to spring. Ancient Greeks feared and honored Poseidon as Lord of all waters, from mighty oceans to gentle streams. This powerful god could shake the earth with his 3-pronged spear, called a trident, and create huge storms at sea. Sailors prayed to him before every journey, hoping he would grant them calm waters and safe passage. Picture a strong, bearded man rising from ocean waves on a chariot pulled by horses with fishtails. His muscles ripple like the sea itself, and his long hair flows wild as storm clouds. When angry, his eyes flash like lightning, and his voice booms like thunder across the waters. The god once fought Athena for control of a great city in Greece. To win the people's favor, Poseidon struck a cliff with his trident and made a spring of salty water appear. But Athena gave them an olive tree that provided food, oil, and wood. The people chose Athena's gift and named their city Athens. Poseidon's anger caused floods that reminded everyone of his power. Greek sailors watched the waters carefully for signs of Poseidon's mood. They tossed gold and wine into the sea as gifts, hoping to please him. Some coastal towns built temples right at the water's edge, where waves would crash against stone steps during storms. Even today, people say Neptune's fury when describing rough seas, using the Roman name for this mighty god of the waters. Prometheus walked the early world as a powerful titan, towering over mountains and sharing his wisdom with humans. He saw how cold and dark their lives were without fire, which the gods kept locked away on Mount Olympus. This clever giant knew that humans needed warmth and light to grow beyond mere survival. By day he shaped humans from clay, giving them strong bodies that could stand upright like the gods. By night he watched them huddle in caves, eating raw meat and shivering in the dark. The sight moved him to plan a bold theft that would change their lives forever. Zeus kept the sacred fire burning in a golden hearth at the top of Mount Olympus. Prometheus crept up the mountain while the other gods slept and tucked a small flame into a hollow reed, like hiding a jewel in a long tube. As he raced down to earth, the fire stayed alive, protected inside its green case. Zeus spotted the stolen flame glowing in human camps and flew into a rage. He ordered his strongest guards to chain Prometheus to a rocky cliff. There, an eagle came each morning to tear out his liver, which grew back each night, starting the pain again. The brave Titan endured this torture for hundreds of years, never sorry for helping humans learn to cook food, craft metal tools, and stay warm. High above the ancient cities of Mexico, Quetzalcoatl ruled as the mighty feathered serpent god. The Aztecs saw him both as a creator of humans and a giver of knowledge. His green and gold feathers sparkled in the sunlight as he flew between earth and sky, teaching people how to farm, make art, and track time using the stars. His body stretched as long as 3 houses placed end to end, covered in feathers that shone like precious stones. A snake's scales mixed with a bird's plumes along his length, while eagle-like talons gripped the earth when he landed. His head bore both serpent fangs and a sharp beak, making him unlike any creature seen before or since. One day, Quetzalcoatl watched humans struggle to grow food in the dry earth. He flew to the mountain of food, where other gods kept all the corn locked away. Using his mighty strength and clever mind, he changed into a small black ant and stole a kernel of corn. He brought this gift to humans and taught them to plant it, helping them grow from hungry wanderers into mighty builders of cities. The people loved Quetzalcoatl because he never asked for human blood in worship, unlike other gods. He taught them to offer flowers and jade stones instead. Under his guidance, arts and learning grew strong. He showed them how to read the stars, shape metal into tools, and weave cotton into cloth. Even today, pictures of the feathered serpent appear on old temples, showing how much the people trusted their kind teacher in the sky. From ancient Egypt came Ra, the mighty sun god who sailed across the sky each day in his boat of light. His most remarkable power let him bring warmth and life to everything on earth. Kings and farmers alike prayed to Ra, knowing that without his daily journey, their world would stay dark and cold. His body showed both human and animal forms joined as one, the strong body of a man topped with a falcon's proud head. Ra wore a glowing disk of the sun above his head, which burned so bright that few could look at him directly. Golden light streamed from his feathers, and his eyes shone with the fire of creation itself. Every morning, Ra fought a battle against Apophis, a giant snake who tried to stop the sun from rising. Ra's warriors helped him defeat this monster of darkness, letting him continue his trip across the sky. Though Apophis attacked again each dawn, Ra never lost, making sure light returned to the world. The Egyptian people shaped their whole lives around Ra's daily path through the heavens. Farmers waited for his morning light to begin their work, and priests sang special songs to help Ra stay strong during his fight with Apophis. Even the pharaohs called themselves Ra's children, building huge temples with openings that caught the first light of dawn. Among the lush jungles and sacred mountains of ancient India, Rama stood as the perfect warrior king and 7th form of the god Vishnu. His blue skin glowed like moonlight on water, and he carried a mighty bow that no other being could lift. People looked to him as the model of perfect behavior and duty, teaching their children to follow his noble example. His strong arms could shoot arrows that split mountains, yet his gentle heart showed kindness to the smallest creatures. 4 brothers shared his royal home, but Rama loved his wife Sita most of all. She matched his goodness with her own pure spirit, and together they ruled their kingdom of Ayodhya with wisdom and care. Forest creatures and mighty demons alike bowed before his power when the evil king Ravana stole Sita away to Lanka. Rama gathered an army of faithful monkeys and bears, building a bridge across the sea with floating stones that jumped into place at his command. The monkey god Hanuman served as his greatest helper, leaping across the waves to find where Sita waited. The final battle shook the earth as Rama faced Ravana, who had 10 heads and 20 arms filled with weapons. Golden arrows flew like lightning between them until Rama's special arrow, blessed by the gods themselves, struck true. The arrow flew straight through all 10 of Ravana's heads, ending his evil reign forever. Rama and Sita returned home in triumph, bringing joy back to their people. Hidden in dense Indian jungles, Rakshasas struck terror into the hearts of holy men and villagers alike. These shape-shifting demons could turn into any animal or person, letting them trick their prey before attacking. People both feared and respected Rakshasas because these clever beings matched their cruel hearts with sharp minds, often targeting those who broke sacred laws. A Rakshasa looked most frightening in its natural form, with burning red eyes and long, sharp fangs that curved past its lips. Like a tiger walking on two legs, it moved with deadly grace through forests and towns. The demon's massive claws could tear through stone walls, while its rich clothes and jewels showed its love of stolen wealth. The great hero Rama once faced a mighty Rakshasa king who stole his beloved wife, Sita. This demon ruled from a golden city on an island where he kept Sita prisoner and tried to force her to marry him. But Rama gathered an army of warrior monkeys and bears, built a bridge across the sea, and fought an epic battle to save her. Villagers placed bowls of fresh meat outside their homes on dark nights, hoping to keep Rakshasas away from their families. Parents warned children not to wander alone in the jungle or answer strangers after sunset, since these demons loved to hunt young prey. Yet some people sought out Rakshasas to learn dark magic, trading their souls for power they could never fully control. Hidden deep in African forests, the Salawa hunts at night with glowing red eyes that freeze its prey in terror. This dog-sized beast carries deadly poison in its strange, backward-facing feet. People in Tanzania speak of the Salawa in whispers, fearing its haunting cry that sounds like a woman screaming. The Salawa looks like a mix between a wild dog and a monkey, with thick black fur that stands up like needles when it hunts. Its most striking features are its feet, which point behind it instead of forward, leaving puzzling tracks in the mud. Red eyes shine from its long face, and a row of sharp spines runs down its back. Villagers tell of a brave hunter who followed the Salawa's backward tracks, thinking they led away from the beast. The hunter crept forward with his spear ready, but the tracks led him straight to the waiting creature. He barely escaped with his life, and his hair turned white from fear. The Salawa changed how people move through the forest at night. Parents warn children to stay indoors after dark when the red eyes might appear. Hunters learn to look for tracks pointing the opposite way and to listen for the warning sounds of silence in the forest. When all other animals go quiet, the Salawa hunts nearby. Satan struck terror across many lands as the ultimate fallen angel, commanding legions of demons from his throne in hell. His most fearsome power let him tempt humans by offering them exactly what they wanted most, though these gifts always carried a terrible price. People both feared and felt drawn to him since he appeared as whatever would appeal to them most. His true form blended beautiful and terrible features, the face of an angel with eyes that burned like fire, great black wings that could darken the sky, and cloven hooves that left scorched footprints in their wake. When he walked among humans, he dressed in fine clothes and carried himself like a nobleman, though sharp-eyed people might spot small signs of his true nature like a shadow with horns or the smell of smoke. Satan challenged God's power by leading a rebellion in heaven, gathering other angels who felt humans did not deserve such love and care. The battle raged until God cast Satan and his followers down from heaven, where they crashed through the earth and created hell itself. The impact left Satan scarred but unbroken, and he swore to prove humans would choose him over God if given the chance. His influence touched every corner of human life as people blamed him for their worst choices, while also making deals with him to gain wealth, love, or power. Farmers left small offerings at crossroads to keep him from spoiling their crops, while ambitious people drew circles of protection before trying to summon him for favors. Some said you could spot someone who made a deal with Satan by their sudden success and the way they began to avoid churches and holy water. Near the rocky coasts of ancient Greece lurked twin terrors that made sailors tremble. Scylla snatched crews from their ships with her many heads, while Charybdis created whirlpools that could swallow entire vessels. These monsters worked as a team, forcing ships to choose between a quick death or a slow one. Scylla once looked like a lovely young woman, until a jealous witch turned her into a beast with 6 long necks. Each neck ended in a dog's head filled with sharp teeth. Below her heads, 12 legs and a fishtail let her move through water as fast as any ship. Her voice mixed a woman's scream with a pack of barking dogs. Charybdis took a simpler but scarier form. From far away, she looked like a patch of stormy water. 3 times each day, she sucked in massive amounts of seawater, creating a whirlpool that pulled ships down to the seafloor. Then she spit all the water back up like a fountain, throwing any surviving pieces of wood and sail high into the air. The clever hero Odysseus faced both monsters on his way home from war. He chose to sail closer to Scylla, knowing she would eat 6 of his men. The other choice meant Charybdis would destroy his whole ship and kill everyone. Even the bravest captain sometimes had to pick the smaller evil. Greek sailors changed their routes to avoid the narrow path between these monsters. They took longer trips around Sicily, adding many days to their travels. Parents used these tales to teach children that life often forces hard choices, and sometimes the best answer involves finding a completely new way forward. Desert storms raged across ancient Egypt at the command of Set, a god with power over chaos and violence. Red-skinned and strong, he ruled the harsh lands beyond the fertile Nile Valley. People both feared and respected him, knowing he could either guard them against evil forces or unleash devastating sandstorms that buried whole villages. Set stood tall as a muscular man with the head of a strange beast, part wolf, part donkey, and part giraffe. His pointed ears shot straight up toward the sky, while his long, curved snout and forked tail made him unlike any creature on Earth. Some say he looked this way because he refused to copy any living animal, wanting to stay completely unique among the gods. The mighty god fought an endless battle with his nephew Horus, trying to steal the throne of Egypt. Set tricked and killed his own brother Osiris, then scattered his body parts across the land. This sparked a war that split Egypt between upper and lower kingdoms, with neither god backing down from the fight. Villages built temples to Set near the desert edge, hoping to stay on his good side. Farmers prayed to him during storms, while soldiers asked for his strength in battle. Even the pharaohs claimed his power, painting his image on their war chariots and carrying spears shaped like his favorite weapon, a strange staff that looked like a forked stick. Egyptian goddess Sekhmet prowled through desert lands with the head of a lioness and the body of a woman. The sun god Ra created her as his warrior and protector, giving her power over plagues, healing, and the burning desert heat. People both feared and honored her as the most dangerous of all Egyptian deities, calling her the Lady of Terror and She Who Maims. Her body glowed like copper in the sunlight, and blood-red gems decorated her chest and wrists. Sharp claws tipped her fingers, and her lion's teeth gleamed white against her dark mane. She stood as tall as 3 men and carried a staff topped with the sun disk, showing her connection to Ra. Ra once sent Sekhmet to punish humans who had stopped following his laws. She went into such a killing frenzy that she nearly wiped out all people on Earth. The other gods tricked her by dyeing beer red to look like blood and leaving thousands of jugs in her path. Sekhmet drank so much she fell asleep, saving humanity. People built temples to keep Sekhmet happy and prevent her deadly anger. Priests performed daily rituals, offering her food, drink, and music at sunrise and sunset. When plagues spread through Egypt, folks prayed to her as a healer, believing she could both cause and cure sickness. In ancient Egypt, Selkit watched over people as they traveled to the afterlife, a special journey each person made after death. As a goddess who could control scorpions, she used her powers both to heal those stung by these creatures and to send scorpions to harm evil spirits. The Egyptian people built temples to honor her because they believed she kept them safe from deadly stings and helped their loved ones reach a peaceful rest. Selkit took the form of a beautiful woman with a giant scorpion perched on top of her head, its tail curved and ready to strike. She often held the Ankh, a cross-shaped symbol that meant eternal life, in one hand and a staff of power in the other. Her dress shimmered like the golden sands of the desert, and she wore the pure white crown of Upper Egypt. The most famous story of Selkit tells how she helped the goddess Isis protect her baby son Horus from danger. When deadly scorpions threatened the child, Selkit used her magic to turn them away. She taught Isis special healing words to cure anyone who suffered from a scorpion's poison, showing that she cared about helping both gods and humans. The Egyptian people turned to Selkit whenever someone fell sick from a scorpion's sting. Healers would pray to her while using medicine to help the sick person get better. Families also placed small statues of Selkit in their homes to keep scorpions away, believing that her presence would protect them from harm. Even today, archaeologists find these statues buried in the ancient sands, showing how much the Egyptian people trusted in Selkit's power to guard their lives. Beneath the scorching sun of ancient Mesopotamia, the mighty Shidu guarded city gates and royal palaces. Half human and half bull, this divine guardian blessed everyone who passed under its watchful gaze. Kings and commoners alike sought its protection, believing the Shidu could stop evil spirits from entering their homes and temples. The Shidu stood as tall as 3 men, with the muscled chest and arms of a warrior and the powerful body of a bull. Its human face wore a long, curled beard made of precious gold, while giant wings stretched out from its shoulders like a mighty eagle. 4 sturdy bull legs kept it firmly planted, ready to defend against any threat. People carved the Shidu's image in stone and placed these statues at their doorways, hoping to gain its blessing. A famous pair of Shidu once protected the gates of Nineveh, an ancient city larger than 40 football fields. The creature's presence brought such comfort that even fierce armies would think twice before attacking a Shidu-guarded entrance. The Shidu taught humans an important lesson about strength and wisdom working as one. Parents told their children that just as the Shidu had the mind of a person and the power of a bull, they too should blend their smarts with their strength. Merchants paid artists to paint the Shidu on their shops, while farmers hung small Shidu charms in their fields to keep their crops safe. Fire and ash swirled around Shiva as he danced across the cosmos, bringing both death and rebirth to all creation. The mighty god lived atop Mount Kailash, a sacred peak wrapped in snow and mystery. His third eye held the power to burn worlds to cinders, yet his followers praised him as a kind teacher who showed them how life springs from destruction. His blue-skinned form towered above mortals, crowned with a crescent moon and the holy river Ganges flowing through his tangled hair. Snake ornaments coiled around his neck and arms, while a tiger skin wrapped his waist. In one hand he held his drum that beat the rhythm of time itself, and in another he carried flames that could cleanse the universe. A demon once built 3 flying cities of gold, silver, and iron, using them to attack both gods and humans. Shiva watched until the cities aligned, then drew his mighty bow. With a single arrow blazing like 1,000 suns, he pierced all 3 cities at once, turning them to dust and saving both heaven and earth. His followers saw him in every ending that led to a fresh start, from forest fires that cleared land for new growth to the death of each day giving birth to dawn. They danced like Shiva danced, knowing that every ending held the seeds of tomorrow. In sacred places across India, people still light lamps and ring bells, moving to the beat of drums just as Shiva did when he danced the world into being. High in the mountains of Germany, a brave hero named Siegfried became invincible by bathing in dragon's blood. A single leaf fell on his back during the bath, leaving one small spot where he could be hurt. This mighty warrior grew famous for his strength, his magic cloak that made him invisible, and his special sword that could cut through anything. Siegfried stood tall and strong, with golden hair that shone in the sun. He wore bright armor and rode a pure white horse named Grani, faster than any other horse in the world. His magic sword, Balmung, glowed with blue fire when danger came near, warning its master of trouble ahead. The young hero heard about a sleeping woman trapped in a ring of fire on a mountain peak. He jumped through the flames on Grani's back and woke the warrior woman Brynhild with a kiss. She taught him magic and gave him special wisdom, but their happiness would not last. Queen Grimhild tricked Siegfried into drinking a potion that made him forget Brynhild and marry her daughter instead. This choice led to fights, lies, and great sadness among the royal court. Hagen, a jealous warrior, learned about the leaf-shaped spot on Siegfried's back and killed him with a spear while the hero drank from a stream. Among the burning sands of ancient Egypt, the Sphinx stood guard over sacred places and held the secrets to life's great riddles. This mighty creature combined the wisdom of humans with the strength of lions and sometimes the freedom of eagles, making it one of the most powerful beings in the desert. Kings and common people alike showed deep respect for the Sphinx, as it could either grant safe passage or destroy those who failed to answer its clever questions. The Sphinx's body stretched as long as 5 men lying head to toe, with muscles rippling under its golden fur like a lion ready to pounce. Its face showed either human features carved in stone-like calm or the sharp-eyed alertness of a desert cat. Some sphinxes spread huge eagle wings from their shoulders, casting cooling shadows on the sand below. The most famous story tells of a sphinx that blocked the road to the city of Thebes, asking each traveler a riddle: what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? The sphinx killed anyone who answered wrong. When a clever man named Oedipus answered a human being, explaining how people crawl as babies, walk upright as adults, and use walking sticks in old age, the sphinx jumped from its high rock in defeat. Egyptian builders carved huge sphinx statues to guard tombs and temples, believing these mighty beings would protect sacred places forever. People left offerings of food and precious oils at the sphinx's feet, hoping to gain its favor and wisdom. The largest sphinx still watches over the pyramids today, its face warming in the morning sun just as it did thousands of years ago. Priests taught that the sphinx carried messages between humans and the gods, since it belonged to both the earth and sky. They painted its image on temple walls and wrote songs about its power, spreading stories of its wisdom throughout their land. Even after the old temples fell quiet, the sphinx remained a sign of mystery and hidden knowledge. Proud and regal, Stolas soared through the demon realms as one of Hell's mightiest teachers. This owl-shaped spirit held power over plants and precious stones, making him a master of Earth's natural treasures. Kings and common folk alike sought his wisdom, though they trembled at his fierce temper and burning gaze. Standing taller than 3 grown men, Stolas moved with the grace of royalty despite his strange form. His body mixed human and bird features. The head of a crowned owl sat upon long legs like a stork's, while dark feathers covered his entire body. 2 sets of wings spread from his back, each covered in eyes that glowed like starlight. Stolas taught whoever dared approach him the secrets of the stars and planets. He showed people how to find healing herbs in moonlight and turn simple rocks into precious gems. Yet his lessons came at a price. Students had to solve his complex riddles or face his razor-sharp talons. Farmers and healers left small gifts of shiny objects near owl nests, hoping to gain Stolas's favor. Those who pleased him found their gardens growing better than ever before, while those who angered him watched their plants wither overnight. Even today, some people keep owl figures in their gardens as a nod to this ancient teacher of nature's mysteries. Female demons called succubi haunted the dreams of medieval Europeans, sneaking into bedrooms at night to steal men's souls through a deadly kiss. These shape-shifting creatures possessed the power to read minds and transform into each victim's perfect lover, making them nearly impossible to resist. Beautiful yet dangerous, a succubus looked like a stunning woman with bat-like wings sprouting from her back and small horns hidden in her flowing hair. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural fire, and her voice carried a musical quality that made men lean closer to hear her whispered promises. Sharp claws replaced her fingernails, though she could hide these deadly weapons at will. Every night, the succubus flew through dark skies searching for sleeping men. She used her magic to slip into their dreams, where she appeared as their greatest desire. The unfortunate victim would feel intense joy as she drew near, not realizing she drained his life force with each passionate embrace. Monks and priests warned young men to guard their thoughts and pray for protection before sleep. They claimed a pure heart could spot a succubus's true form, revealing her demonic nature before she struck. Some people hung mirrors by their beds, believing these spirits cast no reflection and would flee when exposed. Along the rich banks of the Nile River lived Tauret, a fierce guardian of mothers and children. This mighty goddess stood on 2 legs like a human, but carried the strength of a hippopotamus in her body. People saw her as a protector during childbirth, when mothers needed strength and safety the most. The goddess combined features from Egypt's most powerful animals. Her head and body came from a hippo, while a lion gave her its strong paws and fierce mane. She carried the tail of a crocodile, which struck fear into evil spirits. On her belly, she often held the sign of protection, a symbol that looked like a knot tied in rope. Tauret showed her power when demons tried to harm pregnant women or newborn babies. She stomped through birthing rooms with her huge feet, swinging her arms to chase away any dark spirits that might bring harm. Her big belly reminded people of pregnant mothers, making her a friend to all who needed her help. Egyptian families kept small statues of Tauret in their homes, especially in rooms where children slept. Mothers wore special necklaces with her image during pregnancy, believing she watched over them day and night. Even after a baby arrived safely, people thanked the goddess by leaving her offerings of fruit and flowers, keeping her happy so she would stay nearby to protect the whole family. Egyptian goddess Tefnut commanded the power of water and rain, bringing life-giving moisture to the scorched desert lands along the Nile River. Her breath created the morning dew, while her anger sparked fierce storms that shook the earth. People both feared and honored her as one of the first beings in creation, born from the breath of Adam, the creator god. She walked through the world as a woman with the head of a lioness, crowned by a gleaming solar disk and cobra ready to strike. Her eyes blazed like the desert sun, yet tears of joy fell from them to nourish the land. When she moved, the air grew thick with the scent of rain about to fall. Tefnut once left Egypt in a rage, taking all moisture with her into the distant lands of Nubia. The fields dried up, plants withered, and people began to suffer without her blessed rain. Her father Adam sent her brother Shu and wise baboons to bring her home, but only the clever jokes and songs of the baboons made her smile and agree to return. The goddess taught people to watch for signs of rain in nature, from gathering clouds to the way birds flew before a storm. Farmers prayed to her before planting their crops, while travelers asked for her blessing before crossing the desert. Even today, the morning dew reminds people of Tefnut's gentle gifts, while thunder echoes with memories of her roar. Thunder crashed across the Nordic skies whenever Thor rode his chariot pulled by two magical goats. As the strongest of all Norse gods, he protected both gods and humans from giants and monsters. People looked to him as their defender, building temples in his name and wearing hammer-shaped charms for good luck. The mighty Thor stood taller than any human, with red hair and beard that blazed like fire when he grew angry. His most famous weapon, a hammer called Mjolnir, always hit its target and flew back to his hand like a loyal pet. He wore a magical belt that doubled his godly strength and iron gloves that helped him catch his hammer when it returned. Once Thor lost his hammer when the frost giant Thrym stole it and demanded to marry the beautiful goddess Freya in exchange. Thor dressed as a bride, wearing Freya's necklace and women's clothes to trick the giant. At the wedding feast, Thor grabbed his hammer and defeated Thrym and all his giant guests, showing both his clever mind and his great power. Thor rode through storms in his goat-drawn chariot, creating thunder and lightning as he traveled. Farmers prayed to him for rain to help their crops grow, while sailors asked him to calm the seas during their journeys. Even today, people still use his name for Thursday, which means Thor's Day in English. Ancient Egypt's wisest god Thoth guided both kings and everyday people with his endless knowledge. Standing as tall as 3 men, this teacher of wisdom carried special tools, a writing tablet in one hand and a pen in the other. His head looked exactly like an ibis bird's, with a long curved beak and alert eyes that seemed to see everything. Each morning, Thoth wrote down what would happen that day, making him the first author in history. He kept track of everyone's good and bad deeds in his special book, which people said glowed with magic light. The other gods trusted him so much, they made him their official record keeper. Thoth loved to solve problems, and created writing to help humans remember important things. When 2 gods fought, they asked Thoth to judge their quarrel fairly. He even stepped in to heal the eye of Horus, a young god who lost it in battle, showing he could fix almost anything. People built temples for Thoth where students learned to write, and doctors studied healing. Teachers wore ibis feathers to show they shared his wisdom, while healers whispered his name to make their medicines work better. Even today, we remember him as the one who taught humans how to write down their stories and keep track of time. Beneath the ancient waters of Mesopotamia lived Tiamat, the mother of all dragons and monsters. This powerful goddess took the shape of a massive sea creature who gave birth to the first gods. Her roar could shake the heavens and split the earth, making both humans and gods tremble at her might. She moved through the waters as a beast with scales that shone like starlight and 5 heads that each breathed different kinds of power. Her body stretched longer than 10 boats tied together, and when she spread her wings, they could block out the sun. Sharp spikes ran down her back like a row of swords, and her claws could tear through the strongest metal. The great god Marduk fought Tiamat in a battle that changed the world. He caught her in a giant net and shot arrows into her belly while she tried to swallow him whole. As she opened her mouth to breathe fire, Marduk threw in a mighty wind that filled her body until she could not move. He split her in 2 with his special sword, using half of her body to make the sky and half to make the earth. People told this story to explain how their world came to be, and many saw the thunder as Tiamat's distant roar. Farmers would leave small gifts by the water's edge to keep their boats safe, while fishers sang songs about her power to calm the seas. Even today, her name means sea in some languages, showing how deeply she touched the lives of those who feared her. The Titans ruled the world before the Greek gods. These giant beings controlled everything from the oceans to the sky, standing as tall as mountains. They held powers over nature itself, and both gods and humans feared their strength and their anger. The leader of the Titans, Cronus, watched over all creation from his golden throne. These mighty beings looked much like humans, but grew to amazing heights. A Titan could reach up and touch the clouds, or wade through the deepest seas. They had perfect features, glowing skin that shined like metal, and eyes that burned with divine fire. Some could change their shape at will, becoming animals, storms, or even stars. The most famous story tells how Cronus ate his own children to keep power. Each time his wife Rhea had a baby, he swallowed it whole, fearing a prophecy that said his child would overthrow him. But when Zeus was born, Rhea tricked Cronus by giving him a stone wrapped in blankets instead. Zeus grew up in secret and later freed his brothers and sisters from his father's stomach. The war between the Titans and the younger gods shook the earth for 10 years. Mountains crumbled, seas boiled, and the sky filled with fire. In the end, Zeus and his family won, throwing the Titans into a deep pit called Tartarus. The defeat of the Titans marked the beginning of the age of the Greek gods, who then shaped the world as we know it today. The battle left marks on the land that people pointed to for thousands of years. Greeks said earthquakes came from the Titans struggling in their prison, and volcanoes burst when they shouted in rage. Some believed that helpful Titans still watched over them, teaching humans useful skills like farming, healing, and reading the stars. Mighty Typhon towered over the mountains of ancient Greece, reaching so high his head scraped the stars. This father of monsters possessed the power to challenge Zeus himself, breathing fire hot enough to melt stone and creating storms that shook the earth. Greeks both feared and respected him as the most dangerous being ever born, spreading tales of his terrible strength from village to village. His massive body combined the worst parts of many creatures. From his shoulders sprouted 100 dragon heads, each speaking with a different voice that could mimic any sound. His main body had the scales of a serpent, but stood upright like a man, and instead of feet, he had a mass of writhing vipers. His eyes glowed red like hot coals, and when he moved, the ground trembled. Typhon nearly defeated Zeus in their great battle above Mount Olympus. He tore out Zeus's tendons and scattered them across the land, leaving the king of gods helpless. But clever Hermes stole back the tendons and healed Zeus, who returned to strike Typhon down with 100 lightning bolts. The monster's burning body fell into the sea with such force it created waves taller than mountains. Zeus buried Typhon under Mount Etna in Sicily, where he remains trapped today. Whenever the monster struggles against his prison, the mountain shakes and spits fire into the sky. Sailors watched the volcano for signs of Typhon's anger, and farmers learned to read the mountain's smoke to know when to seek shelter from his rage. Fierce warrior women tore through Norse battlefields on massive horses with wings. Valkyries served Odin, the king of gods, by choosing which heroes lived or died in combat. These beautiful but deadly beings could turn the tide of any fight with a single gesture. Lightning flashed off their bright armor as they rode through storms above the clashing armies. Their long golden hair streamed behind silver-winged helmets like rays of sunlight. Each Valkyrie carried a spear that glowed with magical power and wore a cloak of swan feathers that let her fly between the mortal world and Valhalla, the great hall of fallen warriors. Brynhildr, the most famous Valkyrie, dared to go against Odin's wishes in battle. She saved a young king Odin had marked for death, believing the king deserved to live. Odin punished her by taking away her powers and trapping her in a ring of fire on a mountaintop until a brave hero would free her. The sight of Valkyries filled Viking warriors with both hope and dread. Some fighters raised their weapons high, trying to prove their worth and earn a place in Valhalla. Others threw down their swords and ran when they saw the shadow of wings overhead, knowing the Valkyries had come to choose who would die that day. Among the endless stars and cosmic oceans lives Vishnu, the Hindu god who keeps the universe in balance. His blue skin glows like a summer sky, while 4 powerful arms hold the tools he uses to protect all living things. People across India pray to him as their guardian, knowing he watches over the world to keep peace and order. When trouble comes, Vishnu rides through space on the back of Garuda, a giant eagle with golden feathers and the strength of 1,000 birds. His hands carry a conch shell that sounds like thunder, a spinning disc that cuts through evil, a lotus flower of pure beauty, and a mighty club that crushes darkness. A snake called Shesha wraps around his shoulders, whispering secrets of the past and future. Vishnu showed his greatest power when demon kings tried to take over the world. He changed his shape 10 different times to save humanity, becoming a giant turtle to hold up the earth, a fierce lion man to defeat evil rulers, and even a simple village boy who lifted a mountain with one finger. Each time he appeared, he restored goodness and taught people how to live better lives. The stories of Vishnu fill every home in India with hope and wonder. Families paint his picture on their walls, sing songs about his battles, and name their children after him. Even today, millions of people wear a mark on their foreheads to show they follow his path of doing good deeds and protecting others who need help. Proud and powerful, Vuqub-Kaqi ruled the skies of ancient Maya lands before the birth of the sun and moon. This giant bird shone with gems and precious metals, making him so bright that people mistook him for the sun itself. His most striking power came from his teeth of glittering jade and his eyes that sparkled like silver and gold. From his perch atop the world tree, Vuqub-Kaqi stood as tall as 3 men and wore feathers that changed color with each movement. His beak could crack open mountains, while his wings created storms when they spread across the sky. The locals called him Seven Macaw because his rainbow plumage reminded them of their favorite tropical bird, only much, much bigger. The hero twins watched as Vuqub-Kaqi ate all the food from the people's gardens and bragged about his greatness day after day. They knew his pride hurt the world, so they grabbed their blowguns and shot him in the jaw. The mighty bird fell from his perch, losing his shiny teeth and fancy jewels in the process. A pair of healers then tricked the wounded Vuqub-Kaqi by offering to fix his teeth. Instead, they replaced his beautiful jade smile with white corn kernels that quickly fell out. Without his dazzling smile and sparkling eyes, Vuqub-Kaqi lost his light and faded away. His defeat taught the Maya that even the mightiest must show kindness and humility or risk losing everything to pride. Through the mists of ancient China roamed a creature that could see into the hearts of men. The Sieji, a noble beast with the power to spot lies and evil, served as a guard of truth and justice. People both respected and feared this creature, for it would strike down the guilty without mercy. The Sieji looked like a mighty ox covered in thick, dark fur, but with one striking difference: a single long horn grew from its forehead. Its eyes glowed with wisdom, and a heavy mane flowed down its neck. The beast moved with the grace of a judge and the strength of a warrior combined. The most famous story tells of how Gao Yao, a minister of justice, worked with the Sieji to solve crimes. When someone stood trial, Gao Yao would bring forth the creature to test their truth. The Sieji would charge at the guilty with its mighty horn, but walk peacefully past the innocent. No lie could fool this magical beast. The power of the Sieji shaped how justice worked in China for hundreds of years. Judges wore special hats with the creature's image. People carved its picture on their doors and locks to keep away evil spirits. Even today, Chinese courtrooms show the Shieji's face on their wooden hammers, reminding all who enter that truth will always come to light. Mountain spirits called Yaksha guard nature's treasures across India and Tibet. These powerful beings watch over precious gems, healing herbs, and sacred places with magical powers that let them shape-shift into any form. People both fear their fierce anger when forests face harm and seek their blessing before taking anything from the land they protect. Each Yaksha stands twice as tall as a human, with golden skin that glows like sunlight through leaves. Their eyes shine like jewels, changing color with their mood, green for peace, red for rage. They wear crowns made from forest flowers and carry staffs carved from ancient trees that hold their magic. When a greedy king sent his army to cut down a sacred grove, the Yaksha who lived there turned the soldiers' axes to dust. The spirit then changed into a mighty tree with golden fruit, tempting the king himself to reach for a branch. As the king's hand touched the tree, he transformed into a small bird who could only eat fallen seeds and berries. The tale spread through many lands, teaching people to take only what they truly need from nature. Villagers began leaving small gifts of milk and honey for the Yaksha before gathering wood or herbs. Those who showed respect often found extra mushrooms on their path or healing plants growing near their homes, while those who took too much found their bags mysteriously empty upon returning home. Floating above ancient Egypt, a massive snake with a lion's head ruled the early cosmos. Yaldabaoth claimed he stood alone as the first and mightiest god, his roar shaking the heavens themselves. This proud creature sparked both wonder and worry among people who heard tales of his boundless power to create and destroy worlds. His body stretched across the sky like a living river of scales, golden mane blazing bright as the sun itself. 4 wings spread from his serpentine form, each one big enough to cast whole kingdoms in shadow. When he opened his jaws, light poured forth as if the stars themselves lived in his throat. Yaldabaoth shaped the first world using pieces of darkness, thinking himself alone in this task. Yet when he looked down through the waters of creation, he saw another realm of pure light below and grew angry at this challenge to his power. He gathered his strength and struck at this lower world, but his attack bounced back, showing him he was not as mighty as he believed. His followers built temples with snake-wrapped pillars and carved his lion face above their doors for protection. They believed Yaldabaoth watched over the border between light and dark, keeping cosmic forces in balance despite his pride. Some even said his breath became the wind, and his thoughts shaped the patterns of clouds across the sky. Mighty Yggdrasil stretched between all worlds of Norse myth, its branches reaching to the highest heavens while its roots dug into the deepest realms below. This giant ash tree held the 9 worlds of gods, giants, and humans within its living wood. People believed it kept the universe in balance and gave life to everything that moved or grew. Bigger than any mountain, Yggdrasil grew so tall that no one could see its highest leaves, where eagles made their nests and watched over all creation. Its trunk sparkled with morning dew that fell to earth as fresh water, feeding every stream and river. The bark showed marks and scars from all the battles and events that shaped the world since time began. 4 deer ran among its branches, eating the fresh green leaves and helping the tree grow new ones. At its roots, a wise dragon named Nidhogg chewed on the tree's bark, while a squirrel named Ratatoskr raced up and down the trunk carrying angry messages between the dragon and the eagles above. These creatures played their part in the daily life of the great tree. The Norse god Odin once hung himself from Yggdrasil's branches for 9 days and nights to gain wisdom, giving up one of his eyes as payment. This sacrifice proved how much power the tree held, as Odin learned the secrets of magic and writing during his time there. After his ordeal, he shared his knowledge with humans, teaching them about the runes, magical letters they could use to tell stories and cast spells. In the cold void before the world began, Ymir lived as the first living being in all creation. This giant grew from drops of magic ice that melted in the empty space between fire and frost. All gods and giants came from Ymir's body, making him the father of every living thing that followed. Ymir had the shape of a man but stood as tall as a mountain, with skin as cold as ice and bones as hard as stone. His breath came out as winter storms, and frost formed wherever he walked. From his left arm grew a man, from his right arm grew a woman, and from his feet came a six-headed child, the first family of giants. 3 young gods named Odin, Vili, and Ve killed Ymir to create the world we know. They used his flesh to make the earth, his blood to fill the seas, and his bones to build the mountains. The gods shaped trees from his hair, clouds from his brain, and made the sky itself from his skull, holding it up with 4 mighty pillars. The death of Ymir changed everything that came after. His blood flooded the world and drowned all but 2 of his giant children, who lived to start the race of giants again. The gods used Ymir's eyebrows to build a wall around the middle of the world, making a safe place for humans to live called Midgard. The Norse people told this story to explain how their world came to be and why giants and gods fought each other. They believed that the ground they walked on, the sea they sailed, and the sky above them were all parts of Ymir's body, making the whole world sacred because it came from the first living being. Ju-Baji lived in ancient China as one of 4 heroes who helped a monk travel to India for holy books. His greatest power came from his skills in fighting, which he learned as a god in heaven before being kicked out for bad behavior. People both laughed at him and respected him because he could be lazy and greedy, yet he always fought bravely when his friends needed help. His looks matched his mixed nature as a half-human, half-pig being. He had the head of a pig with a long snout, floppy ears, and small eyes that showed his clever mind. His body looked human but was very fat, and he carried a magic rake with 9 sharp teeth that could tear through any enemy. The most famous story about Ju-Baji shows both his weakness and strength. When the group met a beautiful woman, Ju-Baji fell in love and wanted to quit his holy mission to marry her. But the woman turned out to be a demon, and even though his friends teased him, Ju-Baji fought with all his might to protect them from her evil magic. This character taught Chinese people that everyone has good and bad sides. Parents used his stories to show children that being greedy or lazy was wrong, but they also taught that someone could make up for their faults by being loyal and brave. Many people loved him because he felt more real than perfect heroes. He made mistakes but tried his best to do better. Zeus ruled from Mount Olympus, commanding storms and hurling thunderbolts at those who angered him. As king of the Greek gods, he held power over the sky, weather, and law. Other gods bowed to his might, while humans built temples to win his favor. His massive form stood taller than the clouds, with white hair and beard like snow on a mountain peak. When calm, his blue eyes sparkled like a summer sky, but in anger they flashed with lightning. His muscled arms could throw bolts of thunder clear across the world. Zeus turned himself into different shapes to chase after beautiful women he desired. As a swan, he won the love of Leda. As a shower of gold, he reached Danae in her locked tower. As a bull, he carried off Europa across the sea. These tricks led to many children, both gods and heroes. His wife Hera grew angry at his running around and often punished the women he chased. When Zeus learned of her plans for revenge, his thunderbolts shook the earth. Yet he never stopped his tricks, and his children spread across the land, starting new families and cities of their own. North of the frozen seas, Chinese sailors told tales of Zu, a massive bird spirit who carried storms in its wings and thunder in its voice. Anyone who spotted this sky ruler knew great changes would sweep through their lives, bringing either fortune or doom. Zu commanded the weather itself, turning clear days dark with just one beat of its mighty feathers. Each of Zu's golden feathers stretched longer than 10 ships placed end to end. Its eyes glowed like twin moons, and when it opened its sharp, curved beak, the sound shook mountains until they crumbled. The creature's claws sparkled with the same light as stars, though sailors swore they could cut through stone as if it were water. Zu once grew angry at how humans wasted precious rain, watching them fight over rivers while letting crops die in the fields. The great bird gathered every cloud in the sky and locked them inside a cave on the highest mountain peak. For 100 days, no rain fell anywhere in the world. Rivers dried up, and the land turned brown and lifeless. Only when people learned to share water fairly did Zu release the clouds. The bird struck the mountain with its wing, breaking open the cave and bringing back the rain. From that day forward, sailors and farmers always saved some of their best food as gifts for Zu, leaving them on tall poles that reached toward the sky.